Hello everyone and welcome into our latest live video. Today it is Sunday the 5th of April 2026. I'm Kerry Holzman and today I have a brand new, well, how can I phrase this? We have a new introduction, a new manufacturer introduction in the mini PC space that's new to us. I bought this unit off of eBay without any RAM or storage. It came with RAM and storage, but these days eBay sellers are pulling all the RAM and storage out of things and then selling them separately to earn more money. I can't say for sure that's why this seller did this, but they scratched out the amount of RAM and storage it had and then of course sold it for significantly less. It's a shame that buyers will fall for this stuff, that buyers will think they're getting a good deal on something because of the RAM and storage being removed. Which, you know, you might be. You might already have RAM and storage, for example, and you don't need to buy extra. And it's also a shame that people are willing to pay as much for the RAM and storage as the whole computer. And the result is because people are so willing to do it, the sellers are happy to go along with it. And as long as the marketplace behaves in that way, they're just doing it to themselves. I have no sympathy for the buyers and the sellers who play this game. I don't play that game. I think it's unfortunate that it's a little of like, well, you did this to me, so I'm going to do this to you. Or you're trying to take advantage of me, so I'm going to try and take advantage of you. Nobody's trying to help the other one out. The person selling wants the most amount of money they can get, and the person buying wants to pay the least amount. It doesn't matter how much it hurts the seller. There's no consideration for the other person in most transactions online. And I mean, I suppose you could say, well, there isn't meant to be. It's a marketplace and, you know, everybody's out for themselves. It's very competitive. And I don't want to live in a world like that. So since I can't change the world, I simply avoid that side of the world. I may poke my head in from time to time and see what's going on, but I don't participate in it. So there are occasions where I buy bare bones machines, like Mini Swarm sells a lot of machines that do not come with RAM or storage or an operating system. And that's been the case for quite some time, not just because of this shortage issues. So I have plenty of RAM and storage, and I'm not selling it on eBay. You know, I keep it here. I have a business to run, and worst thing that could happen is I could sell it, and then I need it, and then what am I supposed to do? So other people, they're just flipping things. You know, they're probably making $3 an hour to go through and strip everything down, take pictures and write all the specs, and then they have to, you know, pay the eBay fees or PayPal fees, and then they have to deal with potential sellers that are buyers rather, that are scamming them, that are trying to get away with something with, you know, swapping out the product and trying to say, hey, what you sold me is bad, and they want to return. And then you've got scamming sellers that will have something, they'll claim to have something, but they don't have any real pictures of it. They have zero feedback and the price is too low, and oh, there's 10 available, you know, kind of thing. Where the way eBay handles that now is they hold all your money in escrow, and then you get a tracking, you know, when the seller makes a sale, the seller needs to provide a tracking number to eBay to show that it was shipped. And eBay's not really looking at the address. eBay's only looking at the zip code. So they look at the tracking number, they look at the zip code. If it's going to that zip code, it shows it was delivered, then eBay releases the money to the seller. If the seller is a scammer and sent it to some random address in your same zip code and you never got it, eBay will not refund your money. eBay will say, well, according to the post office, this was delivered. And they'll show you the city and state and zip code, but they don't have an address. They don't know where it went. Then you got to contact the postmaster, and then you got to go through postal fraud. And then you have to file a claim with the police department, and all the while PayPal and eBay have nothing to do with you. As far as they're concerned, that transaction's done. So that's one way that sellers scam buyers. The way buyers scam sellers is typically through fraudulent returns, where they will swap a product that you sent with a similar product, even to the point of taking graphics cards and desoldering the chips off of the graphics cards, and then, you know, that requires removing the heatsink, and you can very easily damage those chips. And there's a market for those chips, like kidneys. So if you know what you're doing and you want to pull the heat sink off, pull the chips out, put the heat sink back on, it covers it up, send it back to the seller, file a claim, it doesn't work. Oh boy. And then of course there are empty boxes. Empty boxes the sellers might ship to your address that shows to eBay that it was delivered to your address, but there's nothing in the box. And then there are buyers who say there was nothing in the box, and they file a claim against the seller when the seller was honest and shipped everything, and it's the buyer who's making the fraudulent claim. And that's why eBay, I believe, says this is a legal matter. We're not the law. Contact your local post office, contact your local police department. Once you have done all that, then you go to your payment method, which again is not eBay. In my case, I use PayPal. Then you're going to go on PayPal and you're going to report that the box you received is stolen, empty rather, and same with stolen packages. By the way, you would deal with the law and your credit card company, and the credit card company will want a copy of the police report, and based on that, then you might get a refund. It's a good chance, but if you just file a claim, the credit card company will probably deny it because the credit card company is basing it off what eBay's saying, and eBay says seller shipped it. Whatever it was shipped. And you could use common sense with eBay. You could say, hey, I bought a 12-pound item. And you can look at the shipping information. It shows they sent a 16-ounce item or an 8-ounce item. You can see I bought an item this big, but the box it shipped in, you can see the dimensions. How did the seller fit an item of that size that weighs this much into a box that small and that light? They don't care. They take it up with the police department. So if you want to deal with that, enjoy eBay, enjoy Facebook Marketplace, enjoy Craigslist. Otherwise, shop from a reputable seller like Amazon, Newegg, Best Buy, Micro Center, etc., where you have that 30-day free return customer service, and you don't have to deal with the police reports, or arguing with the credit card company, because they don't know which one of you is lying. Let's be clear. The credit card company doesn't know you from anybody else. As far as they can tell, you're as likely the one, you're making all this up because you're trying to scam the credit card company. The seller thinks you're trying to scam them. You're the one getting scammed. Or all of this is the opposite. Nobody knows. That's why you leave it to law enforcement, because it's illegal and you could get arrested and go to jail if you're found to be guilty of it. So if you say, well, it's not worth it to report it to police, then that person's going to keep scamming. So best to get them arrested or have charges filed against them for theft than to sit there and walk away from it. If you want to make society a better place and you want to send a message and set examples, if you don't want to get involved, then simply don't buy from those kind of garage sale marketplaces. So that being said, I looked at this seller's feedback. They've been around a long time. They had good feedback. The price was about $250, and the specs on this are pretty damn good, I think, for $250. But before I get into that, I want to say thank you to our friends over at VIP URCD Keys. That's where I go to get my Windows and Office licenses for my customers, because I need them to be competitively priced so I can maintain lower prices like my competitors do. But they've got to be legal. Imagine if Dell or HP was selling pirated copies or stolen copies or enterprise copies of Windows illegally. And everybody's like, look how cheap they are. How come you can't, price yours as cheap as theirs? Well, because I'm not stealing anything. So Dell and HP don't do that. Those are the leagues I consider myself in. That's the league I want to associate with. I don't want to associate with these shady third-party sellers. I don't want to, in any way, shape, or form, have a customer worry about, oh, the price is too cheap, or is he going to abandon me if I need him after the sale? Once I get my money, do I just cut and run? A lot of sellers do. A lot of PC sellers do, especially in these marketplaces we're talking about. So I need to be able to stand behind everything I tell my client, word for word, man of my word. There's a consistency and a reliability to it that the one thing you cannot buy is trust. One of the many things in life you cannot buy trust. So you prove it by example, and you do it again and again and again and again and again, and your trust is undeniable. then they're not so worried about the price anymore, as long as you're within reason. You know, if you're charging way too much, we go back to a trust issue again, don't we? So I go to VIP URCD keys, and the way you do that, if you look at any of my live videos and you look at the video description, and a lot of people don't know there's video descriptions. If I pull up a video here from last month, on this video you'll see I scroll down, and this is the same for all my live videos here. It's got the date or how many views, and then it says more right down there. That's the video description. When you click more, it opens up all this information about what the video was about and all the links, including the links for Windows Pro and Home, 10 and 11, Office, etc., etc. So if you just click on one of those links, if you just try and search for it in Google, you may not find it. This is intentionally hidden just for our viewers. Anyway, you'll see there's Windows 11 Pro for $33. But here's the thing. When you hit buy it now, or to buy now, you have to put in an account information. It's free to create an account, and you're going to want to do this because if you ever need to pull that key in the future, you can just log back in and look at your purchase history. So here you'll type in a coupon code if you want to save 25%, or you don't have to do this step, but if you want to take that price another $8 cheaper in this example, enter the coupon code of carry. Yes, this is how I purchase my license keys. That's it. I don't pay any different than you do, and I don't do it a different way than I'm telling you. I don't have two separate rules, one for you and one for me. So you'll see PayPal is the first option, and then there's Visa and Google Pay and Mint, and then just hit pay now and go through the steps. You'll get an email with all the documentation and your product key. And if you're like me and you've ordered hundreds of keys, and now a customer reaches out, it says, what was my key? I can go back and log in and look at every single key I've ever purchased from the very first one to today. So I always have a record of it. And that's why they require the account to be made. It's not there to spy on you. It's not there to market to you. It's there to give you a receipt, and it's there for you to go serve yourself, to help yourself to your account purchase history so that you can retrieve that information. It's just a matter of planning ahead. We stopped doing software giveaways on this channel because we once gave away a bunch, I think it were MC Soft antivirus keys. I think we gave away about 200 MC Soft keys. And then the 2 years after we gave those keys away completely for free, we had approximately 40 requests over the course of the next 2 years of people emailing us months or even over a year and a half later, asking if we could provide them the key that we gifted them for free because they don't know where it is and they need to reinstall. So now we're doing free technical support. We're having to do the research. We're having to look it up. And I'll tell you what, we won't do that again. If people want to be that oblivious to caring about tomorrow, I guess, I don't know, maybe they thought they were going to die. So why should I bother putting this information away where I can find it? Maybe they were just raised poorly by their parents and they live moment to moment like a wild animal. I don't know, but it wasn't like one or two. It was, you know, an average of 1.5 times a month for 2 years after the giveaway. And I don't want to be a jerk, right? I don't want to say, hey, we gave you the key. You gave us nothing in return. You gave us nothing. We gave you a key. Now that's not enough. You want us to give you the same key again because you couldn't be bothered to put it away. So we did the right thing. We say I did the right. This was all on me. It was my decision. I made a bad decision. I will not do that again. All the software companies are the same. Acronis doesn't want to have to tell you what your key is. Microsoft isn't going to tell you what your key is. Any software you buy, they don't want to tell you what your key is. They're paying an employee to answer the phone or answer your emails. And it's adding up to millions of dollars a year of unnecessary support. That's not really support. It's just people being dumb. So companies are like, we're done paying for people's ignorance. So from now on, you're going to create an account. Your purchase history and your product numbers, registration numbers will all be in your account. And if you email us, we have AI respond to where you click on to go to your account and an FAQ that tells you what to do. And you're not going to be bothering our employees anymore. You're not going to cost us any more money. And by the way, you're up for renewal. So give us some money. That's how it's supposed to work. So I'm happy to see this as almost universal now in online purchasing. You know, even my eBay purchases, even my eBay sales, I have a long history of that. So, you know, it's verifiable, and I have to go back and check something. So anyway, that's how that works. And our friends over at VIP URCD Keys have this discount code just for the viewers. A lot of viewers, you know, if you tell them about anything in a positive way, they think you're a sellout or you're getting paid, or they're skeptical. If you talk poorly, you know, if you really just slam on a product or a company, people believe you 100% of the time. They believe you're genuine and honest and you're not getting paid. Fact is, you could be getting paid by a competitor. Money talks, and if there's enough money in it, I wouldn't be surprised that content creators, some of them out there, wouldn't take the money and bash the competitors, even though they may not personally feel that way. So you don't have to worry about that with me, because we don't have any advertisers, let's say. The links I'm sharing with you, they're not for the Windows and Office. I don't get paid any differently. Basically, if you buy the Windows key or you buy the Office key, I don't make any money from it. But if you have any problems with it and you reach out to me, I feel obligated to answer you completely for free when you're not paying me. So this is my favor to you. I want to be very clear on this. You're not doing me a favor buying it. I'm doing you a favor, showing you where you can go and get a legitimate key that has support. And if that's not good enough, do us both a favor and don't buy it. What a crazy world that all has to be explained. Otherwise, it's assumed that every time you buy a key, I'm making money. And that's just not true. So in any event, I just wanted to clear that out, clear the air with that, because there still continues to be this mentality of accusation without people just verifying and asking questions, right? Like, hey, do you make a commission? Hey, you know, and then when you get those answers and then you have something to report or to alert people of, then do it. But when you're alerting without verifying your facts, you're just adding to the general uselessness of the internet. Because as more and more people do that, and if you choose to do that too, then don't be surprised in 10 years from now that we just can't trust the internet for anything anymore. And I don't know what the solution for that's going to be, but it may be going back and reading a book or finding a legitimate source offline. If it continues in this way, I foresee a future where people will shun the internet for the addictive nature and toxicity of social media and the misinformation that's constantly being provided. And I don't know what choice there'll be. Like, there'll be a generation of kids that grows up and goes, I don't know what my parents were thinking participating in this cesspool. So it's not there yet, and we're still able to hedge it off, or at least for us to not be a part of that nonsense. If you choose to be, then understand the consequences. If everybody chooses to do that, there's only one way it's going to end, and that's going to be, the whole thing's going to be useless. So just so you know. Getting to today's computer. Oh, I should say hello to everybody, shouldn't I? Welcome in all of our guests joining us today. Hope you're having a great Sunday. Thank you to Buster. Our friend Peter Laycock joining us from Edinburgh, Scotland, sends a $14 Amazon gift card in lieu of a super chat. He says, good morning, everyone. Well, actually, good evening in his case. Temperature in Edinburgh, Scotland is 39 degrees Fahrenheit right now, which is 3.8 degrees Celsius. We've had rain, snow, and sunshine and hail all today. Wow. Wow. Well, it's good to see you, Buster. Hope you're staying warm and dry. Thank you for your generosity as always. Sean Skinner joins us and says hello. There's David Graham and Rick Lakes. I see Eddie Casanova. Rick mentions it's Easter. Oh, yes, it is Easter. Happy Easter to those of you who celebrate that. David Herzog, John Lewis, Mark Gaines joining us. Luke Greenia and Andy W6AD say hello. There's Mara, our channel administrator, hanging out with you guys in the chat. 3D Everything and Jonathan Fells are saying hello. I also see Thomas MacT. Jim Kenny says hello. Michael LaBelle, Dazzle555. Jose Lopez, Brian Weber, NY Renal MD, Paul Vercher, Scott Messerschmidt, Dennis K saying hello. If you're watching this live on YouTube right now, please join our chat room and say hello. We'd love more kind and supportive individuals from all over the world to join in our community. And we just ask people to be nice. That's it. All you have to do is pop in and say hello while we're live, and then watch the responses you'll get immediately thereafter. And it kind of takes care of itself as far as the enjoyment you're going to have. It's one thing to be watching the game and yelling at the TV. It's another thing to be playing and controlling the game, to have some say in it. And I don't know about you, but I much prefer to play it or have some say in it than just watching it as a spectator. And the friendships you'll make along the way will last, hopefully, a lifetime. People you wouldn't ordinarily meet because they could live on the other side of the planet. But you all share something in common, right? The interest in the subject matter here. And that's a great way to start off a friendship. So we do hope you take us up on that and pop in and say hello, as we have from Patrick Manny saying hello, and Edward Bass, as well as Scott joining us. And a shout out and a thank you to Sean Gallagher, who renewed his membership today, now a member for, it says 12, so at least 12 months. So thank you, Sean. Thanks for continuing to support us here. It's with those memberships, those monthly memberships, that we are able to go sponsor free and buy the products. Unless the company sends us a product for free, we don't sign any NDAs. We don't do any agreements at all, ever, under any circumstances. We always film live. The company has no control over what we're going to say. And if they don't like those terms, which some companies don't, then they don't send us the product. So then what do? We go buy the product. Now, in the case of today's manufacturer, they're called Origimagic. I've never heard of them. I don't know where they came from. They never reached out to us. They don't know me. I don't know them. But what I was looking for was a different manufacturer that we haven't seen yet here before on the channel. And there's a lot of different manufacturers, specifically of mini PCs, that I've never heard of. And this is one of them. Thing is, they do sell them on Amazon. It's never been offered to me on Amazon. I've never once seen the name Origimagic before. So let me show you what we're looking at here today, and then we'll go from there. So let me jump over to my screen capture software, and let's go to their homepage, Origimagic.com. Now, these links are in the video notes below today's video, or the video description, I should say. And let's go turn that screen capture. Or there it is. Okay. So this is the unit that I got used off of eBay. It has Oculink gaming. It's a Ryzen 7 A1. It's not AI, it's A1. It's a 7840HS Ryzen 7 CPU. It's a mobile platform, as all mini PCs are, most of them. It's Windows 11 Pro. Now, it's shipped with 32 gigs of DDR5 RAM and a terabyte M.2. The seller took the RAM and the storage out of the unit. And we know that the M.2 was a Gen 4x4 drive, but everything else should be in there. So the Intel AX210 Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.2 and USB 4. And if we scroll through, I mean, that's a pretty nice, 2.5 gig LAN, pretty nice setup. On eBay, I paid $250 without the RAM and CPU. So I thought that was a pretty good deal for a machine spec'd out this well. There's some looks at the ports on the back of this bad boy. And yeah, it seemed like a pretty good deal. There's your Oculink port, your display port, HDMI. There is it says USB-C. That must be the USB 4 port because that's the only one it has. And the LAN port, too bad it doesn't say that it's 2.5 right there and embedded in the plastic here, but it is a 2.5 gig or Claims to be a 2.5 gig port. And the overall design of it is a little bit different. You know, look at how the corners are kind of flattened. I've never seen that before. And the way the top is designed, where it's not exactly a half and half color shift. It's like a 1/3 black and 2/3 like blue. That's pretty interesting and different, and that's what caught my eye. And on the inside, you can see the RAM is regular DDR5 SO-DIMM RAM. You've got a full-size 2280 NVMe drive that it shipped with, and then like a 2242 that you could additionally add, but I find that personally to be worthless. But, you know, to each their own. Got a little bit of information here regarding the frequencies and performance numbers. And if we continue to scroll through, talk a bit about their cooling, of course, who doesn't? Here's the CPU running for 14 hours. There's your decibel information. Depending on what application you're in, whether it's in standby mode, etc., etc. A little definition of what those decibel volume numbers mean. It does support 8K at 60 Hertz video output. Again, with the Wi-Fi at 6E, it does support Wake on LAN, and you can run 3 displays at the same time, all at 8K display. So you've got an HDMI output, you've got a DisplayPort output, and you've got a USB Type-C output that will work as a DisplayPort out. So all 3 monitors at 8K maximum resolution can be used at the same exact time. It says it comes with a wall mount, and there's all your specs. Again, we don't have the RAM or the storage. That's fine. I've got plenty of it. A little bit more about the cooling. Some examples of where this PC is intended to be used. You can use this in education. You can use this in office. You can use, well, I don't know how meetings in office are different. You can use this for gaming. You can use this for photo editing. You can use this for home theater. And you could use it for a lot more. They're just giving you some ideas. Okay, Amazon has this originally with the RAM and the storage. It's $600. So when you consider I paid $250 used, I think somebody just reviewed it. I don't think it's, you know, it wasn't covered in dust or scratched up. What that's telling you is 32 gigs of RAM and a terabyte of storage are worth approximately $350, and the computer's worth $250. You can do the math on that if it helps you to understand why people are pulling the RAM and storage out. You would likely get this wholesale, retail price rather, by separating the unit away from the RAM and storage, even though it's used. You could sell it like it was new. So if you're a buyer, it's better off for you to just go buy one new that already has the RAM and storage in it, plus you get your warranty and your return period. You don't have to worry about somebody's feedback or being scammed, and it ships typically much, much quicker than an eBay seller would. So for all of those reasons, it doesn't always make a lot of sense to go buy something off eBay unless you're buying something that's very difficult to find, a rare item, or the price is so significantly cheap it's worth all the risk and loss of warranty, and you know, the ability to return something varies by seller, and it's all going to cost. It's all going to take more time. So you're paying with your time, or you're going to pay with your money, and you roll the dice to figure out which one it's going to be when you buy on eBay. You don't roll dice when you buy from Amazon. That's all I'm saying. They have a guarantee, and we could return this if we didn't like it. We have 30 days to return it free of charge back to Amazon for a full refund without it costing us anything but the time it takes to put it back in the box and drop it off at one of the Amazon drop-off points. It could be the UPS store, the FedEx store, Whole Foods, or a Kohl's location, for example. So with that being said, let's get back over to camera 1. And this took over a week to arrive. I was hoping I was going to get it in time for Friday's show. It did not happen, obviously. But hey, we always do a show every Sunday, so it wasn't like It wasn't like that was our only shot. It's just that I was hopeful that we would have had a review or something to do on Friday. But be that as it may, here we are. And let's take a look. This seller was very good at taking pictures of everything. Sometimes sellers only show you stock photos. So you don't actually see what they're selling. You see a stock image from the manufacturer. I don't buy from sellers that do that. That's number one, a big red flag as far as I'm concerned. The only difference is if it's the manufacturer selling directly on eBay, that's a different story. But if it's just Joe Schmo selling on eBay and they don't have an actual picture of what they're sending you, I don't even know that they have it. Anybody can download images and post something for sale. I need to see what you're selling, and I want to see the condition of it. I also want to see everything you're shipping me. I want to see what accessories are you including. Are they all there? Show me. Take a picture, lay out all the, just like the manufacturer does. This is what's in the box. You are going, if you win the auction, you're going to get everything you see in the photo. If it's not in the photo, you ain't getting it. Okay. This person did all that. All right. And, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if this person was a reviewer, because they put everything back the same way I do. And I don't know that this unit was ever used. Apart from a review, it basically looks brand spanking new. I don't know why the seller said. I'm speculating that could be. It's got a little heft to it, and it's a bit smaller than others we're used to seeing. Now, one of the first things we're going to have to do is remove the screws so we can put some RAM in there. But let me see what accessories we've got in the box. Look, the seller put everything back. When you send something back to a store for a refund, you're supposed to do this, you know. Well, clearly they used this. All right. Well, we got the power cable. Oh, look at this. They even put the power supply back in the bag. Even I don't do that. I just throw that out. Who needs that? There's not a scratch or a mark on it. There's the wall mount bracket with the screws. And finally, this is our HDMI cable, which they never even took out of the bag. I'll bet you that's a reviewer. It's got to be. So I don't need this, although I will probably just grab a wire tie and clean that up, just so it's not so ugly in the box, because the next person who gets it doesn't like that. On the other hand, if I'm selling it for $5 and I'm taking it in the shorts, they can clean their own damn cables. You understand what I'm saying, right? It's like, all right, you want to be a jerk? I'll be a jerk too. But anyway, let me get a screwdriver out. Let's get this opened up. I've got some RAM and a storage drive here. This is probably just a Gen 3. That's okay. I'm just grabbing what I have laying around. So yeah, we're into it for $250, give or take $5 or $10 in taxes. Off eBay. Took over a week to get here, but it's exactly as pictured. And provided it works, which I expect it will, definitely will leave positive feedback for that seller. I mean, they have plenty of it, but it never hurts to have more. It's always important anytime I have a good transaction as a buyer or seller that I will leave positive feedback for such buyers and sellers. Just so other people know, is this person safe to buy from? Well, in my experience, you know, and if you have enough of positive experience being left by strangers, you build that up over time, then you'll probably get more money at your auctions, because if you have very little feedback or your feedback's kind of iffy, people aren't willing to risk spending too much knowing they might get a dud from you based on your feedback. Versus if you have perfect feedback and it's shiny and it's been around for a long time, people would be more willing to spend more, that you're a reputable seller and you're not going to burn them. That's the world of eBay. All right, let's see if we can get this opened up. So clearly they've opened it up. We know that because it did ship with RAM and storage, and they took a marker and they marked it off. Now look, if I dealt with the seller directly, I'd say, look, you don't have to do that. I'm just going to put it right back the way it was. But they're dealing with the general public, and they'll say, oh, the box said 32 gigs, you know. Yeah, but I didn't tell you you were getting it. I said you weren't getting it. Yeah, but the box still says it on here, so you owe it to me. There are those people out there, man, I'll tell you what. So I understand why the seller did what they did. I totally get it. You just have to treat everybody like a worst case scenario. All right, so with those screws out, let's go back over to camera 2. This has that like B-Link style pull tab right here. So I don't know, I'm not sure who or if they share manufacturing. Someone mentioned this was a lot like a Boz game. Maybe, I don't have enough Boz game. That feels metal. There is a fan attached to it that's going down right here. We have a heat sink right here for an NVMe drive. Let's go ahead and put our NVMe drive in there. I should get my magnifying glasses out because these are great for distance, but these are good for close-up work, so I can see what I'm doing. Oh, here we go. So we lift that up. Oh, there's 2 screws on this. There's one that we removed here, and then there's one right down here in the corner, also holding this big heatsink in, I guess just for good flat pressure equally across the entire surface of the SSD. Unusual, but not uncommon. And then below we've got the Wi-Fi card right here, which is easily changeable. The screw was included here for the 2242. I hate when people send me a computer, you know, supposedly new, that's used, and they didn't put the M.2 screw back. Those can be difficult to find. And let's see, let's grab our M.2. So again, this is probably not doing me any favors, only because I'm going to use a Kingston drive that came out of a different mini PC. It might actually be in my best interest to switch that out for a Gen 4x4, especially since there's a heatsink on it. So there's a little screw right here that holds the Wi-Fi card. That same screw is what also holds down the SSD. Oh, I see. There's actually a standoff that holds down the NVMe, and then the standoff has a hole in the top that then the SSD can put. You can put that on top. So there's a little standoff right there. So if you wanted to take that Wi-Fi card out, you'd need to get a little 5mm socket in there, and in order to reach that, you'd probably have to get this whole plastic frame off of there. So that's not very easy to change, but at least it's changeable. Some units, they solder them in. This should go in like this, right in here. There we go, right? Make sure that's in. We'll put that little teeny tiny screw back in. You can imagine trying to find one of these screws. If the seller didn't include it, oh boy. Not a problem you'll have if you buy from a reputable retailer. With Amazon, you just send it back. All right, then we'll put the heatsink back on. Ooh, caught it. Yes. Come on now. Come on now. Let's go. Here we go. You don't have to tighten those down tight. Just get them snug. You're good to go. It's kind of weird that that screw stays up like that. But that does appear to be how it works. Let me just take one more look. It's kind of weird. Yeah. Yep. So there's a little moon shape cut out on the end of the heatsink right here. And the screw catches the edge of it. It doesn't sink down at all. So that kind of threw me a little bit, but that's clearly by design. Now, DDR5, I have some RAM I bought a couple of years ago. That's just for repairs and new builds. And I don't remember what I paid for it, but this was about 2 years ago. I've had this RAM for some time. And it looks like I've opened it and used it on camera at some point because the tape is already cut. But this is just T-Force Team Group 16 gig DDR5 5200 speed. So we'll start with the bottom port here first. Okay, so there's one RAM module in. And then we'll do the next one. It goes right above it, like so. Make sure that that's in there, and then grab each top corner and push down equally. Locks it in. Now, in theory, we're ready to install Windows, assuming everything works. We should be good to go. There's a little pad right here and an indentation right there. I'm not quite sure why, other than to just make sure the fan has clearance, because there's no cage around this. So we'll just set that back on there. I guess that just goes right over the heatsink of the NVMe drive. Now, in theory, I could leave these screws out, but I don't want them to fall off the table or anything. So if I put them back, I know where they are. Just in case the RAM's not compatible or something, I might have to open this back up. So I'm not going to tighten it too much, just in case. I don't want to struggle. And once again, I'll just turn those until they're snug. I don't want them loose, but I don't want to over tighten. So just right there, that's all it needs. Oops. Come on, Carrie. You little ripper. There we go. And last one. All right. Come on. Come on now. I think my magnetism on my bit is dying here. It's the last screw, so I don't want to charge it back up because it would take 4 seconds, you know. All right. So the final test, at least from this seller, is that it actually does turn on. So we'll plug in our power adapter. I need an HDMI to the video capture. Right here. I need a USB keyboard and mouse, which I have over here, of course. Keyboard and mouse. I'll plug that in anywhere, it's fine. Turn that on. Turn this one on. I don't want any internet yet. I will need a Windows 11 if this boots. So I get to use my Windows 11 media installer we made a couple weeks ago with all the latest updates from a couple weeks ago already slipstreamed in. And I need a power cable. We'll grab this one here, plug it in, and then we'll turn this on. Power light comes on. Let's switch over here and see if we're getting any video output out of it. I want to see a post. Assuming my RAM is compatible, we should get the logo here in just a moment. There it is. And it looks like it's got a copy of Windows on it because it's booting off of that NVMe drive, which should have been wiped out. I must have dropped the ball. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull the plug on this and I want that drive for security reasons. It's probably just a plain copy of Windows on there, but since I don't know, we're going to go ahead and have it boot to our Windows installer instead. So I'll plug the Windows installer. Where are those USB 2? If those are USB 2, I want to reverse this because I want my installer to go faster. So we'll move the keyboard and mouse to USB 2, move the installer to the blue USB 3s, and then we'll turn it back on. And then while it's booting, we'll try and get into the BIOS this time. So let's jump back over. Let me put myself down here. Okay. And then as this, I missed it again, so I'm going to pull the plug again. That's what happens when I don't pay attention. Plug it back in, turn it back on. And then I'll just start hitting delete now since I didn't see anything. There we go. All right. All right. And there's too much on my desk here, guys, so bear with me for a second. I'm trying to get some space. Get out of my light. Let's get rid of camera 1 now so we can look at this BIOS full screen. Okay. Yeah, it sees 32 gigs of RAM, 5200 speed. That was perfect RAM to put in here. Let's hit the tab button. Is that going to get us over? There we go. The left arrow key got us to the left menu. Enter. I'm just going to leave everything alone here. Power limit is on balance. That's good. So if you wanted this thing to run a little bit higher performance, the fans will make more noise. If you wanted it to run really quiet, like as a media PC, then you'd lose a little bit of performance, but then it should be silent. And in between the two, the balanced mode is between quiet and performance as needed. So what I'm looking for is, if we go to boot, we want to look for a boot override here. And I want that. Is it under save and exit maybe? Yeah, boot override. See where it says boot override down there? Not letting me select anything. Come on. Why am I not seeing anything selected? I guess I use the mouse. And we want to boot from the SanDisk Extreme USB drive. So I click once on that. And that should provide us a one-time only priority boot to the USB drive. And that way, anytime we subsequently reboot, it'll automatically default back to the NVMe, which is exactly how I want it. So then next, agree to everything, next. Accept the license agreement. Yeah, so disk 0, for one reason or another, it got by me. I'm usually pretty good about erasing them, but sometimes I forget. So we're going to, whatever was on there, we're wiping it all out. I'm going to make it just like it was brand new from the factory, from the SSD manufacturer. So no partitions, no formats, no data. It's 1 terabyte. That's where we want to go, is disk 0. Disk 1 is the USB installer. So next, and install. We're off to the races. And let me put camera 1 back up. And let's see what comments, if any, we have in the chat room. I do hear the fan a little bit. Mark Leibowitz joins us from Chicago and says hello. There's Barry Klein saying hello, and Marco B. Welcome in, everybody. Good to see you. Phil Stodd also joining and saying hello. Andy says that's a good, nice-looking Mini. Yeah, I think so. I'm surprised I've never heard of it or seen of it, anything like it before. So just looking for something different, you know. I'd say I found it. Mission accomplished. And let's see. All right. Mike Gamer joins us in the chat, says hello, welcome in. Andy mentions the little NVMe screws come with many NVMe drives. They might. So for me, it's about 50-50. And the one that's being used on this NVMe drive is really, really shallow. Like, it's one of the shortest I've ever seen. When we order the Feijing S880s, they include two, and the reason they include two is they're different. There's about 6 different possible M.2 screw widths, thread depths, and lengths. And while you can get away using a shorter one, you cannot get away using a longer one. It'll bottom out and the screw will stick up and the drive won't stay secured. So the big mistake people make is that somehow there's an agreement that we'll all use the same M.2 screw. And I wish that were true. Unfortunately, there is sort of, we've got about 6 different ones. And I think what Feijing does is they include the 2 most popular in Asia. So whether or not that appeals or applies rather to you in whatever part of the country you live in and what you're trying to do, I think it would be a grave mistake to just make the assumption that one of those 2 screws will fit what is potentially up to 6 different screws, widths, lengths, and thread pitch. But, you know, have at it. I just want the information to be complete. Oversimplifying the world is just going to make your life more complicated. It's an irony, but you might get lucky, you know. The best thing is to use the screws that come from the manufacturer, and then you never have to worry about it. If you're using any other screw, it might work, it might not. If you use the manufacturer screw, it works 100% of the time, guaranteed to never be a problem in the entire ownership of your computer. Okay, and I'm running a business. I need to have that guarantee as much as possible, or I am rolling the dice. You can roll the dice. I just can't afford to lose, man. There's just, the profit margins are too minimal for me. You might order 3 sets of screws before you get the right one. I'm going to have a customer that's livid if they're waiting that long. So, Fred Young said his mini PC CPU temp is 60 degrees Celsius while watching this. Is that normal? Yes. Yep. Is it normal for someone to look at their CPU temp unless they're experiencing a problem? Like, is your mini PC not operating properly? And if it's not operating properly, let's talk about that. But to just randomly look at your temperatures for no apparent reason and then ask if it's normal, my answer is it normal to just randomly look at your CPU temperatures? If the system's running fine, then it's normal. I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? If your system's not crashing or your fans aren't really loud, then everything's normal. You can look around trying to find a problem, but what you're really doing is making a problem. So yeah, if your system's running as reliably, and there's no reason to be looking at those temps, because otherwise we'd be looking at the temps. We sort of a reason. Why are you looking? I don't know. Okay. Can you imagine if a customer called me and said, "Hey, Carrie, I need you to come over to the office." Why? I want you to look at my computer. What's wrong with it? Well, I don't know. That's what I want you to look at. What do you mean? Well, I can't tell if anything is wrong. So I want you to come over to my office and go through my computer with a fine-tooth comb. I want you to look at everything so that I don't have a problem tomorrow. So you're not having a problem today? No. Have you ever had a problem with this computer before? No. And you think if I look at it today, I'm going to find something so that you won't deal with the problem tomorrow? Yes. Okay, it doesn't work like that. I can't stop parts from failing. You know, I can just verify at the time I'm there. You want to pay me to come out and just look at everything that you can see yourself, that there's nothing to fix? Okay, I'll start billing you and I'll head your way. Almost never would anybody agree to that. There's usually a, I'm having a problem, how do I get a resolution to this? So that's what it's like being a computer tech when you're paid for your time. All right, we're going through our final out-of-box experience here. So we'll answer these final questions. I don't have internet. Enter your name, I'll say user. Enter, blank password. And we'll leave location on, but we'll turn everything else off. And then our date and time will always stay accurate even during daylight savings or just normal minutes and seconds losses or gains that occur naturally with the technology. So I like leaving location on. Okay, so we're just getting through the final setup process of Windows 11. Then I can plug it into the network and we can start downloading updates, which should be very minimal given that all the updates as of the middle of March are already in there. So just a couple of updates that came out from the last couple of weeks of March should be all we're missing. So that shouldn't take very long. And then we'll look and see what drivers we need and see if Windows Updates gives us those drivers before we go hunting any down. So this should just take a minute. It's a pretty nice, relatively responsive computer. I do hear the fan, but it's very, very mild. It's very soft. So that doesn't bother me one bit. If anything, when I can't hear the fan at all, it does bother me when I wonder, is the computer on? But this one, you know, if I'm quiet and I listen, I can just hear it. And I'm fine with that. So in just a minute, we'll have our desktop up. So I guess while I'm waiting, let me go grab my Ethernet cable from off the floor. See, I'm still not quick enough. And if our Ethernet driver has been installed, we'll know by looking at the bottom right corner of the screen that looks like a little globe. We'll see if that starts flashing at us. If it doesn't, if it just stays a globe, I can tell you we're missing the driver if that happens. But it is flashing like I said it might, and that means we did get the driver. That's good. So then, well, it's initializing there, and of course now we've got all our icons propagated based on our IP address and the local laws, what's allowed for Microsoft to put there versus, let's say, Brazil or the European Union, where they have strict rules against this kind of stuff. Let me look in the device manager. How did we do for automatic drivers here? Oh, we got a bunch missing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So a lot of this is the AMD chipset. So here's what I'm going to do. We're going to go to Windows Update. Go here and Windows Update. Check for updates. And while we're waiting, there's some changes that they're preference changes that I do for myself and all my customers. I'm going to go to Advanced Options down here. And turn these options on. There are 6 optional updates. We want all of these. These are likely the drivers, many of the drivers, maybe not all of them, or updated versions of the drivers that we already have. And then finally, under Advanced Options and Delivery Optimization, I turn this feature off because we're not in an office with lots of other computers. The idea behind this is if other computers have already downloaded this, why not share their download with you so you don't have to all download the same update over and over again. That doesn't apply for me, so I find that it not even bothering to check seems to speed things up a little bit for Windows Update, but your mileage may vary. So what we're seeing here, you say, wow, Kerry, I thought you said there'd only be a couple updates. Well, there are the updates. You've got your antivirus update that comes out multiple times a day, every day. You've got your main Windows update. Then you've got your drivers, your Windows malicious software removal tools, pretty standard. This .NET framework. This is a driver, 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 this is a driver. So once all these drivers get installed and we reboot the computer, we can go back in the device manager and see if there's any device drivers left that are missing. Regardless, we're still going to want to download the AMD Adrenalin software. That's effectively your graphics card driver. That'll be so much better for performance than the generic one, the general one we're getting from Windows Update. That also, it should include the AMD chipset driver all in the same package. And then we reboot again, and hopefully the device manager is nice and clean, everything's happy, and the system is good to go and ready to start using. It's that easy. The other thing to keep in mind is, even though this was a bare bones system, a product key was likely assigned by the manufacturer. And this is true of like Dell and HP and Lenovo, meaning that we should not have to buy a license key for this. You notice we never entered a license key in. We said we don't have a license key. And as I recall, it didn't ask us if we wanted Home or Pro. And the reason it didn't ask is because it automatically looked in the BIOS, found a product key embedded in the BIOS that tells it if it's Home or Pro. So we don't get a choice. That's why we weren't asked. So if I check our activation status right now, just out of curiosity, I'll bet you it says it's active. How do we do that? Go down to the search bar, just type activation, or start typing it until you see activation settings appear. Click once on that, and here it's already active with a license code already added to our Windows 11 Pro install, and we did not have to buy a license on this. So you'll see that a lot with purchases from eBay as well, where somebody took their SSD out or they removed their OS, but they don't deactivate the license. In some cases like this, you cannot deactivate the license. In other cases where the license code is not embedded, they might be able to move that license to another computer, but most eBay sellers don't know any of what I just said making any sense to them. So the odds are really good in your favor that a used computer will have a license code that's locked into the serial number of the board. The trick is you've got to put the right operating system on. If it's a license code for Windows 11 Home, then Windows 11 Home will auto-activate, but not if it's Pro. Unless the license code's for Pro, in which case Pro would auto-activate, but Home would not. And if you don't know what code you've got or what code was used, you just have to guess and try them both. And if neither one works, well, you're on the hook for a license key, I suppose. It's not rocket science. All right, let me check our power settings because I don't want the screen to go to sleep on us while we're working here. Hey, I'm working over here. Yeah, this seller definitely deserves positive feedback. Okay, yeah, I'm glad I looked because I want this off after 3 hours. And if a computer doesn't have batteries, there's no reason for it to ever go to sleep. I'll tell you something else I've been changing, that it's been out of sight, out of mind. But if you go to, we save those changes and you see it says change what the power buttons do right here. And that's found in the control panel. Notice we're not in settings, we're in the control panel. And change what the power buttons do. It's been defaulting on a lot of these minis to go to sleep. I want it to shut down when I press the power button. And most computers don't even have sleep buttons anymore. So I guess this is irrelevant, but I have OCD, so just say do nothing. I think I'm going to have talk to Nick and see if we can't add that to the Windows 11 optimizer, because I have not been checking that for a couple of years. And I only realized it when I went to shut a computer down by hitting the power button, and it didn't shut down. And then I tried another computer and it didn't shut. And I realized, oh, the default has changed at some point. Microsoft changed it. So now I need to change as a result of Microsoft changing. It also looks like we're in 4K, which is hard for me to read. So let me right click on the desktop and go to display settings. Yeah, 4K. 1920 by 1080. There we go. Keep the changes. Look at that little ripper. I've been watching too much of Drain Cleaning Australia. All right. My YouTube feed is just filled with those videos for that guy. Is the audio overdriven? I'm looking, sometimes it's peaking out a little bit. Does it sound okay to you guys? Or is it a little loud? Please let me know. Craig says, I wonder what games might this be able to play? Well, if we know the onboard graphics of the chip, you could simply Google what games play on that. So we have, if we go back to, oh, wait a minute, already wants to restart. Let's restart. And while it's restarting, let me go back over to the original the homepage to the manufacturer. And I want to remind you, this has an Oculink port. So if you want to drop $3,000 on a GPU or whatever, I'm just putting it out there, you can plug it in through the Oculink port with an Oculink dock, and it'd be the same as any other computer that would have a graphics card, just like they're showing the picture here. But if you're wondering, well, I don't want to drop that kind of money on a graphics card and a dock, it's nice to know you can. What sort of games will it play? So you look up the AMD Ryzen 7 74HS. We'll hit Control-C to copy that, open a new tab. And I got to use the right keyboard though, don't I? Try that again. We're going to highlight this, Control-C, Control-C. We're going to go to New tab, press Control-V, Gaming Performance. And then you can see 21 games. There's over 10,000 games that you can play. Well, probably closer to 150,000 games that you can play. And this video would be 6 months long if they tested every one of them. So the question is, what sort of games can you play, or what sort of performance can you expect? And the AI overview on this can just kind of simplify the answer in general by saying most modern AAA titles at 1080 medium settings will get you approximately 40 to 60 frames per second. And if it's a sports title, like esports titles, you can run those at high settings. They're not so graphically intense. Performance is often compared to a dedicated GTX 1060, making it a capable budget option. Of course, what games you play and what settings you want to play them in, that's really a personal preference. Nobody can tell you what you're going to like until you try it. But that should give you a gist, I think, of what to expect. And the more you want to research that on your own, especially if you can make the question less generic, less vague, and get into the nitty-gritty of the game you want to play and how well it plays on this. And then you can also visit forums, including the game itself will have a forum dedicated to only talking about that game and asking other players who may have played with this chip, the Radeon 780M, that's built into the CPU. They can give you firsthand experience. But with all the different players and all the different preferences and all the different graphics cards and all the different games and the different versions they're in of each game, it may be that it works well under a certain version, and make sure that you have this version of the game, yada, yada, yada. So just keep all that in mind. We don't really go down that rabbit hole here because there's just too much personal variation, and there's no one answer that fits everybody. But I can show you at least what to Google, what to look for, so that you can get the information you're trying to find specifically for you. And you're probably the only one in this entire chat that will watch this video that wants to play the games you want to play at the settings you want to play at. And that information will not apply to anybody else here. You'll have to visit a forum specifically for that game to find other similarly minded individuals as you for that specific game. It's very, very subjective, one person to the other. All right, let's go back to Windows Update and look for some more updates. Settings. Well, this thing's running really nice. We're going to hit retry all. That's normal, nothing to worry about. Likely those were already installed in the background, and it was trying to install them twice. So the duplication is the one that fails. You'll know because if an update tries to reinstall again and it's the same update, like if we look for this Microsoft Corporation driver or this AMD Compute Accelerator, notice they're not there anymore because they already successfully installed. And what you're looking at are the duplications of what was happening automatically in the background versus what we were manually doing. And one finished first and the other one failed. That's why it's not trying those again. It was already successful. Oh, I forgot to turn that on too. Yeah, everything there looks good. So we just got an antivirus update here, which is no big deal. It takes a second to put in. That's already done. Let's take a look at the device manager. So we'll come back down to the start menu, right click on the start button, choose device manager. What are we doing? We still have 4 devices. Okay, so a couple ways we can handle this. The first thing I want to do is install the AMD Adrenalin driver in chipset. And then I'm going to see what's left. It's quite possible there won't be anything left. So let's do what we know first and save what we don't, if such thing exists. So I'll go up to the browser and type in AMD Adrenalin without the E. Right? Usually Adrenalin has an E on the end. But then I don't think they could trademark the name Adrenalin. That's why they do that. And we'll go to AMD's website, download the software. Well, I guess I got to accept the cookies. We'll download the software, download the drivers. And in just a second, we'll have that. Open it. Yes. See how fast this is? I'm happy with what I paid for what I got. What do you think? I'd say that's a pretty good deal. Even at $600, that's a fair price when you consider the 32 gigs of RAM and 1 terabyte. Okay, so this says there's your graphics driver there, and there's your chipset driver. Install, install. Advanced is probably nothing we want in here. Yeah, everything looks good. Whether or not you want to help AMD by reporting any problems during the install, it's anonymized, but whatever. I turn it off, but you can leave it on. And then just let her rip. Tater chip. While that installs, let me get back over to the chat, see if there's any other questions I can try and answer for you. Some of these questions, they're just subjective, right? Is this tattoo gonna look good on my arm? I can't answer that. All right, that's installing. Okay, back over to the chat. Brian Weber said the sound sounds okay to him. Thank you for letting me know. Craig also says the audio seems fine. Again, I appreciate that. I don't wear headphones when I work, so I can't hear myself. I mean, you know what I mean? I can't hear the audio that's being, the quality of the audio going out. I only know the quality of the audio that's coming out of my mouth. You have to tell me. I can't tell you if it sounds good. So thank you for doing that. As I mentioned before, if you get these notifications that pop up on your computer from time to time, there's going to be 3 little dots next to the X. See these 3 dots? And you can turn off all notifications for OneDrive right here. Click on that. And you won't be bothered by that anymore. A lot of people just hit the X, or it says, you know, no thanks, but remind me in a week or a month. And they're looking for the option that says never remind me. Microsoft Marketing has left that option out on purpose. It's not a technical limitation, it's a marketing manipulation. And they say, well, we give you a way that you can turn it off, but you have to figure it out. They don't present that to you as an option. But when you know how to do it with one notification, then you know how to do it with all the notifications, because they'll all have the similar X and the 3 dots universally. It's just like it's just like Windows doesn't use Windows Startup anymore. You'll find that when you look in your Start menu, you don't have a Startup folder anymore. That went away a long time ago. So if you were wondering, how do I find the things that start with my computer? And you go to like MS-config, well, you don't use that anymore either. You're now going to go into Task Manager. But the Task Manager will show you these items and what you would traditionally see in MS-config. But there is no MS-config anymore. But that's not your startup items. That's called the task scheduler now. So there's always been a task scheduler, but now it's being used to schedule things to start when the computer starts that are not listed in MS-config. So you're like, where's this program I can't find? This is particularly true of removing malware and stuff where you can't find the Screen Connect software. It's because you're looking at the old MS-config in the Task Manager instead of looking at the task scheduler. All right, things keep changing. I keep reminding people this isn't 20 years ago. Windows has changed how the registry works. Windows has changed what the control panel can do versus the settings, and this goes on and on and on as the operating system continues to evolve, just as it has in the past. It's always the same, and that they're always changing it. All right, so with that, we're good here. So let's go back. Software up to date, yes, all that looks good. Close. Is it going to want to reboot? We'll probably have an icon down here. Yeah, there it is. And then our antivirus. See, I don't like that Microsoft hides this. It's got a little hazard on it. We're going to dismiss that and dismiss. So the hazard was there just for marketing purposes. Okay, let's skip this for now. And we're all up to date. Hit manage updates. Yes. And let's see what it says about our chipset driver. Up to date. AMD software extensions. I don't know what that's for. Auto updates turned on. Okay, everything looks good. So if I close, let's get rid of all this nonsense. Okay. Let's go now to the device manager and see if we still have anything needing to be recognized. We do not. So what I see your average home enthusiast do is they start looking for drivers right away. They want to work so hard and make life so complicated. All I can do is say, you have fun with your little toy. If you need help later, let me know. And if you want some advice, you're putting things out of order. You should be doing exactly the way I've shown so that there's a good chance when you're done doing it the way I've shown you, you won't end up doing what you're doing right now. But I don't know you. I don't know why you're doing it the way you're doing it. You might be doing it just to defy me. You might be doing it to prove me wrong. You might be doing it because you enjoy it. You might be doing it because you don't know any better. I don't care. I'm here to show you how I do it as a professional, where time matters and responsibility and accountability matter. If that doesn't matter to you, you may not get much out of this channel if you only want to hear what you want to hear. But if you're curious or interested in the processes we follow in business in order to make money and ensure customer satisfaction as much as possible, we don't do it based on our feelings. We do it based on what is scientifically proven to be more efficient, and you'll know because you'll be able to sustain a living by earning money from it consistently. You won't make a little bit of money this week and more money next week because you haven't, let's say it's the same job and you keep making up a process every time you do it. You never do it the same way twice. After a while, sooner or later, you're going to realize you need to sort of do it whatever way works most efficiently and quickly so you can get to the next job. And it's through that experience that I share the information with you. There were no books when I started my business regarding how to run a computer repair business. In fact, even books on how to maintain a computer, there were few and far between, and most of them were very technical and couldn't be understood by an average layman, which is why I wrote one. Actually, I wrote two. But the point is, somebody has to write the books. And if you're not that person, and the thing you're reading that was published from a reputable publisher is something you don't agree with, then why aren't you writing a book? Why aren't you sharing your knowledge so we can all benefit from it? That's my thing, and that's why I did it. Anyway, with that being said, everything looks good, and I'm not quite sure what the performance numbers are on this NVMe I put in there. I'm pretty sure it's a Gen 3, but we can check it. And the way I do that, I'll grab my utilities flash drive here, and let's copy over Crystal Disk Mark. I don't think I need, well, yeah, we'll bring over Crystal Disk Info. Let's see, let's go to the utilities flash drive. I want to run my optimizer. I want to run VLC. I want to run, let's put Cinebench. We'll also want Crystal Disk Info, Crystal Disk Mark, and HWI. Copy those. Paste them here. Let's see, where do I want to start? I guess we'll do the optimizer first. We sell this optimizer. It's a way to support the channel. There's no product codes or activations, so you can run it as much as you want on as many computers as you want. We simply ask you don't give it away to strangers or friends. Encourage them to buy it and support us so we can continue to make more videos and we can continue to finance the further development of the app. But that's all based on an honor system, and the future of this app is in your hands, because if a lot of people are copying it or they're not buying it and supporting it, then we can't afford to keep putting money into it, and that'll be the end of that. So we'd like to see the opposite happen. We'd like to see an influx of money come in from that app, that people see what a great value it is, that they can use it on all the computers they want. It doesn't install anything, and it doesn't change anything that Microsoft doesn't authorize. So there are no negative connotations from future consequences of running it. And once it's run, you can take it off the system. It's done. You don't keep it on there because it won't benefit you again. Once it changes the setting from on to off, or on, whatever the setting is it's changing, unless you changed it back, there's no reason to run this again. So right now it's running automatically to just verify that the optimizations we asked it to do have been done, and then it verifies that all these are now green. We can see Windows is activated, TPM is installed, Secure Boot is on, BitLocker is off, System Restore is off. You might want to turn that on. See, I wouldn't even have known. So the app puts all this in one pane of glass. System Restore does not affect, okay, so how do I turn it on? Configure System Protection, Configure, and turn on System Protection. Isn't that interesting? Ignorance was bliss. I thought that was on by default. So when we refresh this, let's try again. Let's close it out and let's start it up again. Let's see if it now says that System Protection's on, or System Restore is on. It is on, yay! And if we click on that, you see there's no right or wrong answer here, it's your preference. There's no restore points yet, that's fine. What I'm curious about is how much space are we saving? Sorry, reserving. I think I don't need that many restore points. Let's say we'll reserve 57 gigs for it. And let's create a restore point. See, that's what the optimizer does. It doesn't change everything for you. It brings things up to your awareness. If we wanted to back up the drivers for the system, now that we've got them, we could do that. Disk cleanup, that can run for us and clean up all the temp files. Again, it won't delete anything you need. It frees up your valuable hard drive space. This is all built in one pane of glass, and it just makes it super, super friendly to be able to use it rather than jump around all these different areas of Windows to make the changes. There's our information on our Windows, what version it is, what build number it is, what our SID is if you're somebody who does cloning, and then of course the computer name and workgroup name. That's a lot for 20 bucks that you can run on as many computers as you want without limit. Only ask that you don't give it away. because you're undermining us if you do it. And in the end, if people do that, then it undermines yourselves because there won't be any future updates and we won't pursue it any further. Okay, so you choose the world you want to live in. And that's the world we'll all start living in. With that done, I suppose the next thing I can do is run, yeah, we can put VLC on here while we're waiting for the cleanup to finish, just to get it out of the way. And I will use this to, for me and my customers all, to play any videos or music, any media files. And we get rid of the Windows Media Player because it's crap. It's just a lot of advertising and it doesn't play a lot of stuff. It's not compatible with a lot of different formats. And VLC is free and open source and trusted. So then we'll go into the apps that were installed with Windows and we'll take the Windows Microsoft Media Player out of there. Because who needs it? We don't need two apps to do the exact same thing. Pick one and move on. With regards to Crystal Disk Info, we can run that right now. We'll cleanup is running. And this will tell us what generation and number of channels this drive that we've installed, that Kingston drive. So here it says that Kingston drive, turns out it is a drive that supports PCIe 4x4, or that rather this is the current mode the drive is in. And on the right side, this will be this has nothing to do with your motherboard, by the way. This is just about the drive. What is the drive capable of and what is the drive doing? So what it's capable of is PCIe 4x4. But if we plug this into a Gen 5 slot, it's still going to say 4x4. If we plug it into a Gen 3 slot, then the drive will only transfer at Gen 3x4, but be supported up to Gen 4x4. That's how you have to translate this information. What's the drive capable of, and what's it currently running at? And if it's running at what it's capable of, we're good to go. As far as an M.2 slot that supports Gen 5, this can't tell you if the board supports Gen 5. I mean, I know this board doesn't, but if you didn't know, you'd have to look up the board. This information screen here is just about the Kingston drive and what it's capable of and what it's operating at currently. Nothing more. All right. Running disk cleanup, please wait. Okay. What else? We could start, let's get ready for Crystal Disk Mark. Let's just get it prepped here. And let's close that window. And let's move, no, let's minimize that. And hopefully this will finish up here in a second. Oh, all I had to do was say something. All right, now that the system's theoretically idle, let's go ahead and run our benchmark on this drive. And again, while that runs, let me just take a look over here at the chat room. Bradley says, Carrie, thanks for bringing up the task scheduler. I rarely look at it unless I'm the one trying to automate something, but the vendors and the bad guys can use it, and this is a great reminder. Yeah, it may be something I need to do a shorter video, like a quick tip on. Zarosk saying hello and joining us, along with Dustin Fuller, John Rogers, and Graybeard, and Richard Fries. Welcome in, guys. There's Shane Perkins saying hello. Good to see everybody today. I hope you're having a great day. We're having pretty nice weather today here in Phoenix. I'll take it. John Rogers is Graybeard, I guess. He says hello. I see our community helping each other here, which is fantastic. A lot of times there are questions that I don't see or I can't answer, where our community does have the answer. So again, don't necessarily, just wait on me for an answer when we have a very knowledgeable and helpful community that are always willing to jump in and lend a hand here. Someone's asking about a checksum error, but we'd have to know. They said checksum error in Windows 11. What is the error? exactly and when does it happen? I mean, that would help. It would also help to know, is it always been this way? Or did this suddenly start happening? But I need to know, we need to know verbatim, in other words, word for word, what does the error message say exactly? And when do you see that error message pop up? And then other questions may then come up, like, are you using Intel or AMD? Is this something you built yourself? Or is this a pre-built machine from one of the big, manufacturers? Or is this something that never happened until recently and it's been good up until now? These kind of questions help us isolate down what the problem is to get you the resolution you want. But if you can't be bothered, if you think it's too much trouble to provide the information, that's nothing compared to providing you the answers. So you kind of get what you give. If you're going to be vague and not very helpful, probably the answers you're going to get are vague and not very helpful. But if you go through the effort and you provide that information, there's a much better chance that the information you see in return is more accurate and more applicable to solving your problem. And it looks like this Kingston drive is running at about 5,000, a little shy of 5,000 megabytes a second. That's fine. It's a mid-range Gen 4. Gen 4 can run up to 7,300 megabytes a second on the sequential reads. So it's average and very common as an OEM drive. So I'm okay with it. I mean, at some point I wasn't okay with it, which is why it was there to begin with. I'm looking at my stack of spare NVMe's and I'm like, oh, let's try and put something in there that likely would have shipped with, since I don't know what it shipped with. Many PCs ship with Kingston. And so when I saw that, I said, well, it's a good chance it shipped with something similar, but I really don't know. Let's go save this result on the desktop. It's a JPEG file. Crystal disk mark. And did I end up putting 2 dots in that? I did. Okay, and then let's start up hardware info and let's see what kind of temps this thing is running at. And at the same time, we'll run it through the Cinebench torture test and see how loud the fans get and how hot the system gets. Remember, it's on balanced mode. So it's not on quiet mode, which would give us lower numbers, but a quieter, less aggressive fan. It's not in performance mode, which would do the opposite. We'd see higher numbers. But the difference in the numbers is maybe single-digit percentages, like 3% or something. So people really have to be intolerant people to think that 3% makes a difference when you're dealing at this scale of thousands of megahertz. But they're not doing anything wrong. They're just being really, really difficult people. And, that's fine when you're doing it to yourself, but I don't want people to do that to me. All right, so here we go. We've got, well, let me rephrase. I don't mind if they want to pay me. They can be as intolerant as they want to be if they're willing to pay for it. I have had and still do have a couple of very wealthy customers that are very demanding. And I charge them more and they pay more than all my other customers. So they can be as demanding as they want to be so long as they keep paying the bill. But you don't get to pay the cheap price and then turn around and expect to have, concierge service right to your door. Okay, I'm just trying to move this over to the right a little bit and it doesn't want to cooperate with me. Very sensitive. Maybe all I can do. And then let's bring up Cinebench R23 and we'll run that. Oh, by the way, what are our temps just right now as we're idling? I forgot to look. It's graphics, CPU, or temperature. Well, yeah, that's it. You always want to look for that drop-down arrow. So yeah, we're sitting down around 34, 35 degrees Celsius, which looks really good. Let's go ahead and accept our license agreement on Cinebench and start the multi-core test. That'll warm up for 10 minutes. And so during the first 2 minutes of the warm up is, in my experience of using this tool, is when we see our highest temps, which are recorded. Where it says here, it says maximum. Down this entire row are the maximum numbers that were achieved. They should only be achieved momentarily. They shouldn't be sticking at any, like this, the maximum temperature and the current temperature should not remain the same on a high number for any length of time, more than I'd say more than about, depends what you're doing, but more than a few seconds in most cases. So here, for example, it said Core 2 is currently running at 75.3, but it did get to 75 point. Well, I'm already talking and it's changing while I'm talking. It did reach 82.9. You see how fast? It's like watching audio levels moving up and down when you're listening to music. Sometimes the audio levels stay down. And if you had one of those meters that would hold the peak, it would just leave the top lit lights on for just a couple seconds before turning them off. This shall tell you this is the peak that you hit. And if the peak is always lit up and it's never turning off, you got to turn some things down. All right. So with that, we'll let that run. We'll keep an eye here. We're already hitting, it looks like 86.4, which shows red, which indicates to me that it's probably thermal throttling at that point by the BIOS setting. So we'll keep an eye on it, but that may be a limitation that says let the CPU get this hot, but never let it go hotter than that. That way, that ensures you can get the best performance out of the CPU without handicapping the CPU by never letting it get that hot, or by prematurely killing your CPU by just constantly letting it run that hot over and over. You're gonna kill your CPU sooner if you always run it hot. So clearly, it still was able to get a little bit warmer. We're getting up to 88. Now, I'm okay with these up to 95, personally. 95, if it's only going to hit 95 on these little mobile laptop chips, I'm not comfortable with it unless it's just momentary. If you're afraid of 95, then you're afraid of the performance of your computer. So you kind of need to find your balance, in my opinion, by either buying a higher end CPU. So in other words, if this CPU, to achieve this performance, is going to regularly run at 95 the way you use it, and there's just, no matter what, it's always at 95, you're going to kill that chip sooner than if it was running under, just temporary 95 now and again. But if you're like, I don't ever want it to hit 95, well, that's easy. Go buy a higher end CPU. You underbought. It's like buying a 90 horsepower car, but you wanted a 300 horsepower car. You've got to pay for the thing it is you want. You can't buy the cheaper thing and expect it as though you just outsmarted everybody. Why do I need to buy a Corvette when I can buy a Chevy Spark? There's a big difference in performance and the suspension of the car, not to mention the overall styling and looks. Yes, you're going to pay for that cosmetic improvement too. So as far as I am concerned, allowing the CPU to get hot, even when it's in the red, so long as it's temporary, it's not sustaining it for a long period of time. So like right now, we're hitting some pretty peak temps, and we're looking at just this here, which I'm not too worried about. I'm more worried about the core 0 through 7. So there's 8 cores, and I'm watching these 8 cores to see how hot they're getting. And these 8 cores, the hottest one of these cores has gotten is 88. Hey, if that was a DeLorean, we could go back to 1955. But 88 is well, actually, yeah, it's showing 88 here too. We're good. Oh, this is fine. And again, if you take the lowest temperature of 33.8, which was the lowest, this is the highest, this is the current, and this is the average of all three. So you're looking at 74.2 as your average. That's fine. You can run at 74.2 every day, 24 hours a day, you're not degrading the chip at all. But if this average was up in the 90s or even the high 80s, the higher that number is, the more you're degrading your chip. So the more often you're doing it, the more degradation takes effect, and that over time then shortens the life of the CPU. I can also quite clearly hear these fans cranking up, working. They're not loud to the point that I have to talk over them, but they're loud enough that you do notice something's going on, and I feel the air coming out of the back of this almost like a hairdryer. Like it's really aggressively coming out. And you want that. That's what's keeping it cool. There's nothing for you to fix here. That's doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. All right, so let me get back over to the chat. And again, we'll take a look at what people are saying here and if anybody has any questions. Our friend Buster was saying good night. Oh, well, have a good night, Buster. Sorry, I just saw that. He's probably already to bed. Have a good night, my friend. I'd be curious if there's other brands of mini PC out there that we've never reviewed that you want us to take a look at. We ordered another one from Amazon called Firebat. I don't know who Firebat is. I don't think we'll get it till Friday. But, you know, we're running low on content now, so we're having to spend some money. And we may end up just putting this right back on eBay, leave the RAM and storage in it, and then use that money to then help pay for the Firebat. And then the Firebat already has RAM and storage in it. And after we review that, maybe we'll put that one on eBay. We'll take the money from that, use it to buy another. So if there's a brand out there, I'm particularly interested in brands that we've done all the common brands, Origimagic and Camrui and Minis Forum and GMK Tech and Geekom, Peladin and Wowie, B-Link and TrigKey. So what I'm interested in particularly are these brands that are like, who is that? Just for variety. Andy says he has a Firebat. Do you like it? Do you recommend it? They have a cool logo. That's a good reason to spend money. Mara and I both, I said, look at the logo. She's like, yeah, I love the logo. Oh, let's get it. It's just a stupid reason to make a purchase. But my justification is I need the content. We've never had this company on. They don't work with us at all. They've never responded to our requests for review units. So we'll just buy it. And thanks to our members, we can do that. And that's our plan right now going forward until things change. So this could go on for another year. We'll see. I'm glad the Kingston drive I had was Gen 4x4, and I'm glad that memory that I had was perfectly suited for the system. That was just guessing, and I got lucky. So my plan is to keep it in there and just sell it like that to the next person. There's no way that'll go for $250 anymore. It'll probably sell for closer to $450, $500. Because if you could buy it new for $599, and it's like new and it's not very old, I think $100 to $150 off retail is a pretty good deal. Of course, what I think is a good deal and what somebody's willing to pay, that's what I like about eBay auctions, is whatever the most is somebody is willing to pay, you can't argue, that's what it's worth. And it could be because, hey, you're not going to take returns. It could be because you don't have much feedback or any feedback at all. It could be a lot of different reasons why your item doesn't sell for the maximum price unless you're willing to accept, take on more risk and risk also getting potentially scammed. So the loss you're taking is kind of insurance by saying, I'm not taking returns. I know this works. So unless it's damaged in shipping, it's on you now. I never want to see it again. Don't call me for support. You're a stranger on eBay. Have fun. I need to move on to other things. If I'm making a profit from it, however, right? So if you're a customer of mine and I were to sell you something I expect you to call me for warranty. I expect you to call me for service, and you're going to be paying more. Right out of the gate, you're going to pay me more. I'm not doing the work for free. I'm not a charity. I would love to be. As long as another charity wants to pay my bills, I'm happy to go work for somebody else for free, but somebody needs to basically give me the money for free. But since that's not an option, I don't know what choice I have if I want to pay my bills. I don't want to be jerk about it, but how are my bills any different than yours? Do you do a bunch of work for people for free? If you sold something and you took a loss at it at a garage sale or something, and then somebody comes back 6 months later and they want to know, they want some help and they expect it for free. And let's say you've done this 200 times this year. At what point are you saying this is too much? I don't mind helping one person on an occasion, but I can't just sit here and spend all this time unpaid for people, especially when they're creating their own problems. You know, oh, I opened up the unit and I broke this wire. What does it do? No, take it to a shop. And you know, it's just again, if it's a customer that pays me, I'll come out there and I'll fix it and I'll bill you for it. So if I'm going to sell it without, just like AliExpress, I'm going to sell it without a warranty and without a return, then I don't expect to make as much money from it. But I expect to make more money because I don't have the future calls that cost me money that the buyer would expect for free. Not to mention the stress. It's yours now, it's your problem, deal with it. You want to pay me? Happy to help you. If I sold it to you person to person as a customer, I back up everything I sell. If I sold it as a random anonymous person on eBay, that's no different than buying at a garage sale. You're on your own. So on eBay, I expect to make less money. And if I sell it person to person, I expect to make more money. Katrina says hello in the chat. She says, I'm late but present. Welcome in, Katrina. Always good to see you. Andy said he has a Firebat A6 Ryzen 6800H. So you like it. Good to know. We'll have to wait and get our hands on one and see if we come to the same conclusion. I hope so. The fan's getting really quiet here, so did we finish? Oh yeah, we did finish. Over here. So that's our score, 15,788. Now I'm curious, what? All right, wait a minute. Let me do this in the right order. Let's start the single core test. So a couple things I want to look at. One is, what was our maximum temp? $88.1? No, 82 point, no. 88.1 looks like that was our maximum. That's fine, perfectly fine. So while the single core test is running, so 15,788, the reason I want to compare that to what the manufacturer's website said in their test results said here. Let's see, they said 15,885 Cinebench R23, 15,885, and we got 15,788. 15,885, right? 15,885. And okay, so we're 97 points lower, but that may be because we're not in performance mode. That's why I say, if you were offering, I just want to give you some perspective on this, man, because it's so ridiculous and stupid. To me, it's just absurdity. let's say you're selling your car for $16,000, and I go, would you take 15.5? You're like, no, but I would take, let's just play here. I would take $15,885. I'll come down off my 16,000. I'll take 15,885. And I say, well, would you take, what was the number here? 15,788? 15,788 instead of 15,885? I think any reasonable person would say, well, for $80, $90, let's make the deal, let's get it done. Who cares? It's such an insignificant difference based on the entirety of the total. It's such a small little tiny percentage of loss that, are you going to miss it? Some people are going to say they want every penny. If it's $16,000.03, I will not accept 1 penny less than that. Well, good luck selling your car, buddy. You want to be done with it? You want to get on with life? Here's my offer. We're either going to walk separate ways, or I'm going to leave with a car and you can move on to whatever the reason is. Whatever things you've got to do after you sell this car, you can continue to keep waiting to do them till you find somebody that pays your price. Good luck to you. The longer it takes you to sell the car, the more the car depreciates. So now it could be costing you money to not take the deal. The point is, when you go into performance mode in the BIOS, you're making such a tiny difference that I would assume maybe that's how they got to the 15,885, was they went into performance mode. Just out of curiosity, let me ask Copilot what that exact percentage is. That's one thing I am not good at doing in my head. What is the percent difference between 15,885 and 15, what did I say it was, 788 or something? I'm remembering what I just said 2 minutes ago. It's too many different numbers. 788, okay. We're arguing over 0.6 of 1%. Just slightly over half of 1%. Now, 1% of a dollar is only a penny, and 1% of $1,000 is like $1, right? No, $10. If you were walking around with $1,000 cash in your pocket or $990 cash in your pocket, you basically have $1,000, essentially. It's not so much of a difference to be worried about it. And that's 1%. We're at 0.5%, little over. So 0.5% would be half that number. So instead of $10, it'd be closer to about $6 if it's 0.61. Who was putting that much effort into such a little teeny tiny difference? Why would you? It's got to be a game. It's just got to be a mental game. And you can play the game. I'm not telling you not to. I'm saying, for me, working in the industry, people aren't paying me to get 0.5% more performance. It's just not a thing. But on the internet, you'd think that's all everybody wanted, was that another 0.5%. No matter how much they have, it's never good enough. And they're always going to be that way. Until they decide to change their attitude, they're always going to be unhappy that nothing's ever good enough. Does that sound like a fun person you want to be around? Does that sound like a fun job for somebody you want to work for? They would be terrible bosses. And I hope they're not a boss of anybody if that's their attitude, because you must be miserable to work for. So I try to make things fun. I try to make things logical. I try to save my customers money. I try to do it as quickly as I can so they're as inconvenienced as minimally as possible. That also frees me up to help the next customer so they're not waiting longer than they have to. That helps me make more money per day to help as many people as I can. And it's important I do it right the first time as much as possible, so I don't have to inconvenience the customer and myself and my expenses to go back and do it again or to fix it a second time when it was supposed to be fixed right the first time, which then can cause a consequence in the future where the customer may not be so quick to call me again if they've lost confidence in me. If I charge them too much, they probably won't call me again. If I take too long, they probably won't call me again. There's a lot riding on versus sitting at home going, I wonder if I can get another 0.5%. I mean, come on. We're living two different worlds here. So if you're expecting that from this channel, I'm telling you right now, I'm going to stay grounded, and I'm going to encourage you to be grounded too, because mentally, from my perspective, it's just a lot more enjoyable. But when people want to be that demanding and they pay me for it, that's a different story. Anyway, I'm speculating that that may be why the difference, the minor 0.5 percentage point difference in the score they're reporting versus the score we are getting, may be that. And I don't care enough to change it. Like, it's such an insignificant number as to be meaningless. Mark Beckett renews membership, now a member 46 months. Thank you, Mark. Andy says, maybe reset hardware info. There's no reason. Why would I reset it? What's that going to do? It's holding the peak regardless. You wouldn't reset it under normal use case scenario. If you're using a computer and the temperatures go up and the temperatures go down, why would you reset it and lose your history? I still want to know what the peak temps are regardless. Not what the peak temp was under one scenario versus... I have no idea why you recommended that. So you'll have to tell me why, because maybe I'm way off base for what you meant. I hope I am, because otherwise I don't get it. Andy says Cinebench has a variance. Every test, yeah, that's true. Anytime you run a benchmark, rather, not a test, you won't get the exact same number twice. Same with Cinebench, Crystal Disk Mark. But you should be within a percentage. And, you know, is 0.6 within that range? Maybe. I wouldn't think it'd be that big of a difference, but it's possible. Phil Stodd said, waking up every morning is good enough for me, right? The good news is if you don't wake up one morning, you'll never know. That's for everybody else to know. Katrina said, a picture, that is a good idea. Oh, I guess you're talking to Mara. So yeah, the fan is quite noticeable when it's really under an intense workload. But again, for me personally, that's what I want, unless the fan's too loud. Now, what you think is too loud and what I think is too loud, we may not agree. But what I can tell you is I find this very acceptable, a great example of a prototype of what to expect as normal from other manufacturers, regardless if it's Intel or AMD or what CPU it is. That amount of volume is just enough to let you know, hey, I'm working over here, I'm busting my chops, and when I'm done, I'm going to quiet down. But while I'm busting my chops, I'm not going to annoy you with the noise. But there is going to be the noise of the fan in response to me busting my chops, but it won't be so loud as to be disruptive. It's just enough to make you aware. I'm fine with it. In fact, I think that's the way, whatever those decibels are that it's doing right now, I wish that they all never exceeded that level. This one over here can get pretty loud when these fans crank up, but luckily we don't put it under any resource load. For what we're doing to live broadcast, it's barely being used. Andy says you can see what the peak temp was on single core and not was reported for multi-core. So again, so we're talking about resetting hardware. It doesn't matter. I think maybe you're digging into information that we never sought. I'm not interested in how hot the CPU gets under single core versus, that was never, ever, nor has it ever been anything I'm ever interested in. I'm only interested in under single core or multi-core use. what is the hottest temp that this machine gets to. Anytime you ever see me run this for your future knowledge, Andy, that's all I care about. It doesn't benefit me in any way, shape, or form that I can tell a customer, hey, look, yeah, your system's running hot under multi-core, so all you got to do is run it under single core and cut your performance off at the knees. Or when you run that application at single core, it's running hotter. The customers don't, nobody cares about that in real world. It's irrelevant. It should always run under any scenario, under any number of cores, under any workload, and stay at a maximum temperature regardless. So the reason I run the test is to figure that out. Just like when we run Crystal Disk Mark, we want to know what is the absolute fastest this drive can do a read or a write. Somebody might say, but that's not how most people use it. I don't care. That's not what I'm not trying to replicate how most people use it. That's never, ever been the point of these benchmarks. And it's a way that your mind, in my opinion, is being manipulated by content creators, where they're looking at irrelevant information that doesn't apply in the real world. So unless you're a developer or you're a researcher and you're trying to improve the technology, you may have a reason for that level of diagnostic. But for us, we're trying to emulate a worst case scenario in the real world by a real customer. What's the worst a customer could do to this without opening it up and physically, changing heat sinks and parts? And as long as we're staying below a threshold of temperature, regardless of use case, that passes the quality control and can be moved on to the customer. But if we were at MIT in a science lab, then what you're saying would be more appropriate. But we're not researchers and we're not developers. That's not what I do in this channel. And that kind of information would only benefit people doing that kind of work, which is, again, not how I make a living. So I'm a little biased on this. And I want to be very clear. I'm not looking to set Guinness World Records, and I'm not trying to get a 0.5% more points. I'm just trying to gauge what it's capable of in performance, in cooling, what's it capable of overall in general. That's it. Andy says, why run a single core test? Well, we want to emulate as much as possible varying workloads. We don't know if a customer has some software that runs on single core. Most, it's really hard to say. I would say most don't, but you know what? I've got customers running some pretty old software. And if that software is really extreme and it's like an old version or the company went out of business and that's all they have or whatever their excuse is, we don't want to see it overheat. So we're trying to emulate. If a customer were to run a piece of, the customers don't know. They don't know it's this multi-core, single core software. They don't know. Most of the time I don't know, nor do I care. If there's not a problem to fix, then what are we doing? We're breaking it, so we have a problem to fix. If the customer has a problem running a piece of software, and they call me and say, every time I run the software, the fan gets really loud and the system crashes. That's an entirely different story. And to avoid that scenario from ever occurring to begin with, we make sure we run this through a reasonable set of testing that can emulate worst case scenarios. But it's just not a world of absolutes. There's not a guarantee it's never going to fail. And there's not a guarantee the customer's never going to push it beyond what we're doing here. There is no such world that we live on that exists in this universe that I'm aware of that's so absolute. But what we can do is we can do reasonable testing of emulation of really hardcore, resource-intensive examples of, in this case, single-core CPU test that do not in any way represent any normal use. This would be an extreme and unusual use case scenario. But that doesn't mean there aren't other scenarios even more extreme that are also unusual that a client has every valid reason to do. So what we're doing is we're evaluating that 99.99% of the clients, by running these tests, won't have an issue with data transfer speeds, or they won't have an issue with heat regardless of single or multi-core. because we just ran this through a test that, except for the finest, littlest, little teeny tiny leftovers, those customers, they can pay more. When I find what's left of that 99.99% who says this isn't good enough, then I know that client isn't paying me enough money. Because if they'd have paid me more, we'd have never had the problem. And if they want to be that 0.001% or 0.01%, then they can also represent the wealthy 0.001% of us and pay for it. But that's the logic behind it. It's really just about customer service, quality control, and to make sure that expectations on behalf of the customer are met, and that I don't get blindsided because I couldn't be bothered to put 20 minutes in to just check it. Because if I put this 20 minutes in and everything passes, the odds are 99.99% that it's never going to be an issue for the customer. And for any customer that's left, it's so rare and infrequent, the answer is very simple. They're going to have to pay more money for higher end equipment. But that being said, it also means that when a customer calls and they are having a heat issue, something's changed because I know I tested it before I sent it to them or before I sold it to them. So does that mean there's been dust buildup, or maybe they put it in a cabinet and it can't breathe? You know, they've located it, maybe they turned it on its side and they're blocking the ventilation. They did something to it. Or maybe the fan stopped spinning. Something's physically broken. Maybe it wore out. Maybe it was defective and it was on its last leg. But again, the odds of that happening are far lower than the odds of not testing it and saying good luck. And then when the customer calls you, you have no baseline to start from and trying to figure out what's wrong. So when you're selling it to somebody and you're held accountable to somebody and your livelihood depends on that customer being happy, having their expectations met, the reasoning behind what you're looking for and how much time you're going to spend versus how much time you're going to save versus how much you're going to spend versus how much you're going to make, it's all calculated into the business model. So I hope that makes more sense to you. A lot of businesses don't figure this out. That's why a lot of computer sales companies and repair companies don't last more than 2 years, because they don't really think it through. They just think, oh, just build clients that come in, and I guess they just somehow think all those numbers are going to work themselves out. But there's got to be, the math has got to be done to be able to have a guaranteed income that you know, I guarantee you my bills are due at the end of every month, and they're pretty much the same every month. Some will fluctuate a little bit, but mostly I have a pretty good idea of how much money I need to make. And if I can't do it through this, I got to find another way, because the bills are still going to come whether or not I'm ready. It doesn't matter. So I'm always trying to be prepared. $36 says you could liquid cool this. Yeah, I mean, if you needed a machine liquid cooled, you definitely wouldn't be able to do that in a Mini. You could do that like in a Mini ITX, but then you got to deal with failed pumps and bacteria in the fluid, evaporating fluid, and then that's, again, just spend more money. We can do whatever you want to do if you want to spend the money for it, but you'd be better off, you know, with a traditional tower if that's what you want to do, and then have the ongoing cost of maintenance. Those water coolers last about 5 years on average, and you'll be replacing it. An air cooler like this will last, in general, on average, the life of the computer. And it's a lot cheaper, smaller, just makes a lot more sense. So again, for those that are that intolerant, I hope you're wealthy. If you're not wealthy, you know, there's an expression, beggars can't be choosers. If you're buying something like, I bought this for $250 on eBay, and we're expecting it to perform like a $25,000, you know, whatever. I mean, that's just bizarre. It's like going into McDonald's and saying, this is so much worse than the steakhouse. You paid a lot less. Nobody's wronged you. There's no injustice. The only injustice is you're not being fair to the company. You're being unreasonable if that's the way you want to be. And it's nothing your money can't fix. You can be as unreasonable as you want to be if you're willing to pay for it. But if you don't want to pay, then stop being unreasonable and demanding until you're ready to pay. Otherwise, be grateful you got such a good deal. All right. Looking at final scores, let me go up here and let me take a screenshot of this. So we'll hit function, print screen, and we'll go to paint. Let's paste that in. Save it. JPEG on the desktop. And we'll call it Cinebench R23. Oh, no. Cinebench R23 results. Yeah, so we never exceeded 88.1, and that's all I'm after. That's the whole point of it. Now, if it overheated or if it was getting really, really hot, I would shut the test down. I wouldn't allow the test to complete after. I'd say if I see anything higher than 95, just shut the test down and we get something wrong. And it would not be sold on eBay or to a customer. We would have to fix it first. And if we can't fix it, you'd probably just go to a recycler, because I can't risk my reputation and, you know, customer confidence. I wouldn't even sell it on eBay and risk negative feedback. Even if I disclosed it, if I said, hey, I'm going to sell this for parts only because it overheats, you're going to get some moron who buys it, and they're going to say, this guy sold me a computer that overheats. And there's nothing you can do about it. eBay will say, well, too bad. You say, well, I told the guy, it's in the listing it overheats. Doesn't matter. If they want to complain that it overheats, regardless, there's nothing eBay will do to help you. Because in their mind, the buyer was not being inaccurate. What else? I think that pretty much wraps up what I wanted to do with today's machine. And I'm very happy with the end results. I had a little concern about compatibility with the RAM. I had a little concern about the speed of that NVMe drive, but everything's, I couldn't have planned that better. Sometimes things just go the wrong way. Today, things went well. So overall, I mean, I'm impressed by how little this thing is too. It's smaller than most minis and a little taller than most minis. I'm sure the measurements are on the website, but just out of curiosity. Just out of curiosity, what are we looking at? Looks like it's 4 inches. I'm going to guess probably all the way around. 4.5, 4.5, inch and a half. That's really small. Oops. I think most we see are probably 5 by 5. So it's not like it's tiny, but it's smaller and a little taller than what we're used to seeing more commonly. The fact it's got Oculink is a really nice touch, and it also looks like it's got a Kensington lock right there. I also like the color of it, and the design of it doesn't look so generic. Like a lot of B-Links, they all look alike. Which, you know, look, it may not be a bad thing. You know a B-Link when you see one. But one would say you know an Origimagic when you see one, because they think they all have that top. So good first experience. I wouldn't mind looking at more from this brand. Maybe we'll have Mara reach out to this brand and show them this video, and maybe they'll want to work with us. Then I don't have to pay for them, and we'll have more content and explore. They have a laptop, and I was tempted to buy it, but you know, I need that like I need a hole in my head. And let me show you the laptop. So the Origimagic A2, that's an interesting looking design. Select a color. Well, that changes the case entirely. Black, deep black, light black. Light blue. Those are all different models. Very strange. That's a 6800H. What was this funky one we looked at originally? That's a 13900K. I don't know why it's asking about the color, but it's changing everything about the computer. Very strange. That's a serial port. It's a VGA. That's not a VGA port. I've never seen a well, maybe it is. You know what? Maybe it is. 2.5 gig LAN, 1 gig LAN, DisplayPort, HDMI, 2 USB 2s, 2 USB 3.2 Gen 2. Okay, I'm squirreling. Where's the laptop? Not here. Well, that's interesting. I know I saw it. Did I just dream it? Just type in laptop. Nothing. Spelled it wrong. Let's try that. Did I look? It's changing the title. Stop changing that. It did it again. Origimagic. Let's try this. What if we go to oh, you know what? Maybe it was Firebat. I'm confusing them. Let's do it this way. Firebat. Fatbat? Firebat laptop. What my brain wanted to type and what I typed were two different things. Really wish Amazon wouldn't change my search. Okay, it's Firebat. That's what I was looking for this whole time. So check this out. This is a 15.6-inch laptop with a Ryzen 7430U CPU, 16 gigs of RAM, and 512 storage, which you can upgrade the RAM and you can upgrade the storage. They're not soldered in. The keyboard is backlit. Somebody can teach Apple how to do that. And it's got 100-watt power delivery Type-C. And it's got an RJ45, which a lot of laptops don't have anymore. Now, it's not being promoted for gaming for obvious reasons, but clearly you could game some games like esports titles, older titles, depending on what the game is, retro emulation and stuff like that. But it's being promoted as, you know, for somebody looking to get some work done and to be very affordable and portable. I was looking to see if there was a close-up of the ports. So there's your Type-C. It looks like HDMI, a couple of USBs, and a memory card reader. I'd love to see the other side. I wonder where the heck is the Ethernet port. I haven't seen an Ethernet port in a long time on a laptop. Oh, I see. So because the laptop's so thin and an Ethernet port is so tall, it's got a jaw. So you have to open the jaw. And then the Keystone jack is available then. Clever. Very clever. And then, of course, you've got a USB 3.2 and a USB 2, the SD card reader, the audio jack, the Kensington lock cable, another USB Type-C on this side, So that's not a Kensington lock. That's to see the K on the lock. This one up here, this is USB Type-C. And the power input is not Type-C. The power input is DC barrel jack. Interesting. Very interesting. And then your charge indicator LED is right there. That seems like just too good of a deal, doesn't it? You get a whole laptop, screen, battery, speakers, keyboard, trackpad, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, operating system, and it's a backlit keyboard at that with wired RJ45 HDMI out, and you're going to pay $384 for it, and the free delivery is about 5 days away. Oh, Prime members can get free delivery tomorrow. Okay, I'm not signed in on this account, so I was tempted to order one to see it, but then I'd have to sell it on eBay when I'm done. It just really looks like a great deal. Now, look, I don't know what kind of support these folks at Firebat have. I don't know what kind of like website or download drivers or any of that stuff. I've never worked with this brand before. But I also know with the brands we have been working for, we really haven't, pretty rare that we need to support of any way. But if you have a warranty issue especially, I wonder how they handle that. And Firebat has their online store, and you can see all the different products that they make and sell. Looks like they have a tablet of some kind, mini PC. I don't know what this is. What's a mouse? This laptop has a 5070 in it. Ooh. So they do make gaming laptops. Quite a few of them from the looks of things. I don't know how they have flown under our radar all this time. That's really baffling me. See how their logo looks? I just think that's cool. So they're making minis, they're making laptops, they're making accessories. Interesting. More to explore. So we're looking to receive the Firebat Mini at the end of the week, the end of next week. If it comes in a day early, that would be great, and we'll do it for Friday's show. If it shows up as expected on Friday, then it'll have to wait till a week from today, the Firebat Mini PC. Okay. If there's any final questions, that'll otherwise wrap it up for today's show. Let me jump over to the chat room. Arnold wants to know, would I consider a Ryzen 7600X at 95 degrees to be overheating? A Ryzen 7600X, you're talking about a desktop CPU? Because there's different rules if it's a mobile CPU versus a desktop. There was the 8000 series Ryzen where AMD said it's supposed to run at 95 all the time. And I basically gave AMD the finger and said, you're lying. That is lying. There is no desktop CPU where it would be normal for that to run at 95. And shame on AMD for just boldly faced lying from their marketing company to suggest there's nothing to fix. They just don't want to fix it. They're saying it's good enough. And I'm saying, I don't care if you say it's good enough. Intel wouldn't do that. Your competitors don't do that. So, in fact, they themselves don't do that except on the 8000 series. And they've never done it again. So I think that they've learned their lesson. But if you're talking about a 7600X, if you're just hitting 95 momentarily, it's probably not a problem, but it would still bother me personally. If we just do a quick search on what's the 7600X threshold, Ryzen 7600X, the thermal junction on that is 95. And the AI overview said it's designed to safely operate at this temperature under load to maximize boost. But generally, you should expect between 80 degrees Celsius and 90 degrees Celsius if you're using the full 105 watt TDP. What you're doing is you're hitting the limit. 95 is its limit. And if you want to continue to run any chip, and I don't care what the manufacturer says, if you are going to degrade that chip if you're always at the limit. If every time you got in your car, you pushed your gas pedal all the way to the floor and you like to do burnouts, I hope you don't plan on keeping that car very long. If you did this to yourself, if you went out every day and you ran 20 miles a day every day, you're going to have knee problems, you're going to have all kinds of problems because your body can't be pushed that hard that often over time. It's very unlikely that you can sustain that abuse to your body, regardless of who you are. And there might be some exceptions out there, but the older you get, that 20 miles is going to start feeling like 30 and 40, and your body's ability to keep itself cool and to maintain and repair itself in between those 20-mile runs, you're going to need a couple days to recuperate, especially the longer you do it. And in much the same way, everything on the planet kind of works that way. So the more you push it to the far limits of what it can do, the more often you do that, the sooner you're going to have a failure of some kind. So my goal is, it's okay to hit it once in a while, but you don't want to always be there all the time. If you are, I would say you either need a better cooling system or you need to lower the wattage to the CPU, bring it down a little bit. Bring that performance down a smidge. You'll never notice the difference anyway, and you'll have a much more stable system over a longer period of time in general, in my opinion and in my experience. But just because you hit 95 once, I wouldn't worry about it if it came and went. But if it's staying and it's happening frequently, that would bother me. Even if it's not causing a problem, I would be worried about, is this computer going to last 2 years or is this computer going to last 10 years? Some people are like, I don't care, I'll be buying a new one in 2 years anyway. Other people are like, I can't afford to buy another one. I need this to last as long as possible. Well, then stop abusing it. It's kind of common sense, right? If your CPU is hitting 95, you're abusing it. Yeah, Phil Stott is telling me that VGA pin looks like the VGA connector that we were looking at. I said, that doesn't look like a VGA. Phil's confirming it should have a whole nother row of pins. That's what I thought. I don't know what's going on with that. And I don't even have any VGA monitors to test it with. It just kind of, I looked at it and I went, that doesn't look right. And he said he's concerned about some of the Amazon, when you're buying a product at Amazon, sometimes it'll say this product is frequently returned. That's because most buyers are morons. In my example, and this is the best thing I can tell you, Andy, you've got a world of fiction out there waiting to manipulate your brain, hosted by people who either intentionally or unintentionally, because they're too stupid, unaware of what they purchased and what they were buying, and now they're pissed off at Amazon for the decision that they made. And they're allowed to review no differently than somebody who is intelligent, knows exactly what they're buying. Their review doesn't stand out as more valuable or less valuable, okay? And the reason I bring this up is every time I've ever ordered from Amazon, I have never once received a product that I can recall that said, this has a high rate of return, where I went, oh yeah, I see why now. That's never happened. In most cases, when I see high rate of return, what that means to me and how I interpret it differently than you is most morons buy this product. More morons than normal who don't know what they're buying are buying this product for some reason. That's good to know. This product attracts morons, but that doesn't mean you're going to get a bad unit. So I can listen to morons, or what could be morons, or I can actually see a live video with someone who's got one in their hands. Which one do you want to believe? You want to believe the real live video with the real product from a real person who showed you live, unedited, and unscripted with no control over the outcome? Or somebody on Amazon you don't know their reputation, don't know if they're a moron, don't know if they work for a competitor. Those Amazon reviews can be more harm than good by basically being Chicken Little and lying to you. Or they believe something that's not true and they want you to believe it too. The best thing you can do is to have your own experience. I cannot recall, and maybe you can, but I can't recall ever ordering something from Amazon that said this product has a high rate of return or higher rate than normal, where I agreed with it. Never, not once. Have you ever ordered anything from Amazon that warned you that this warning that you are now perpetrating without any evidence other than just hearsay, that you bought anyway, and you ended up returning it and adding to the group saying, yeah, don't buy this? And if so, what was it? I'm just curious. So many people live in fantasy land, and I just like to keep it grounded to reality. It's interesting, the stories people make up or the attitudes or expectations, no matter how unreasonable and absurd the people might be, doesn't give their review any validity for me. So overall, what are the average ratings? Amazon's AI analytics are pointless because Amazon has a lot of moron customers. They do. The amount of returns Amazon gets every single day would blow your mind. So these aren't people that I would find to be sources of information. I don't want to take diet advice from anybody fatter than me. Okay. I don't want to listen to a homeless person tell me how to gamble. Clearly, they're an expert, right? So these people that write these reviews, you don't know anything about them. Keep that in mind. Nor does Amazon's AI. So that's all just AI analytical data. It doesn't evaluate the user. Wouldn't it be great if they would, though? We found this reviewer to be accurate and consistent in understanding the product they're purchasing. Or we found this viewer to constantly be displeased and always write reviews based on their feelings and not based on facts. And the reviews from this person should be considered as, less valuable. That's where I'd like to see the AI go, because we can't treat all reviewers as equal. They're not. So if somebody is a reputable reviewer, somebody's name you recognize and you trust, and they say its product is crap and stay away, that's a different story. But a complete random stranger telling you not to buy it, what are you doing? Why would you even care? What does that got to do with reality? They live in a different world than you and I. So I just dismiss that nonsense. You see, regardless of whether or not Amazon says it has a higher rate of return, that doesn't matter to me. I don't care what somebody else did. What's that got to do with me? I'm not interested in meeting their expectations. I need my expectations met. And how am I going to know if it meets my expectations? I have to buy it. I still have the same 30-day return period, regardless of that information. That information is toxic, and I think it's a warning to morons. Like, if you're a moron and you're the kind of person that wants some kind of reassurance that you're not going to return this, please don't buy it. It's like a politically correct way of Amazon shooing away the morons. You don't want this. That's why I say it doesn't apply to me or you. It has nothing to do with us. For somebody that will base a purchasing decision on that information alone, you don't want those customers. Trust me, you don't want those customers. Because they're just going to turn around and return it, right? So best they didn't buy it to begin with. We'll all be happier. So when I see that warning, that's not for me. It's not for you. This is for the morons. And if they're like, oh, I see that, I'm not going to buy it, good. We'll all be happier. So we need to have our own experiences. We cannot live our lives through what other people decide for us. I can't. Maybe you can. I don't want to live my life on someone else's terms and expectations. Unless they're paying me. It's a different story. All right. So anyway, that's just my philosophy on it. Whatever it's worth, some of these people on Amazon are so ridiculous. There was a review on a KVM. I think it was the Nano KVM. And someone said, a friend of mine told me this was great and I bought it, but I don't know what it does or how it works. And it came with no instructions, and it didn't come with it'd be like you bought a piano and it didn't come with any documentation on how to learn to play the piano. So you're like, you should stay away from buying a piano because it doesn't teach you how to play the piano. It's worthless. I don't understand what I'm supposed to do with it. And they didn't include a free educational tutorial at a college level from basic to expert in the price of the piano. So therefore, I cannot recommend the piano. It's a ripoff and you should never buy one. The person's a complete moron, right? See what I'm getting at? You weren't buying piano lessons. And if you didn't know how a piano worked, why did you buy one unless you were willing to learn? And you just thought the lessons were included? Really? Good luck with that. Trying to clear a little room here. Andy said the wonderful Radeon Alloy 9 had a high return rate and is one of the best, if not the single best mini PC I have ever seen. And that is all that matters. And if you have robbed yourself, if you had made a different decision and you allowed that higher return rate than normal manipulate your purchasing decision, then you walk away in ignorance, thinking you just avoided a disaster when there was no disaster, and what you avoided was one of the best experiences of your life when it comes to mini PC that you yourself have just said. So the only person you're hurting is you if you choose to, follow that nonsense. And for those people, like I said, if they choose to do that, you don't want those kind of people as customers. If that's how they base their decision making, we don't want them leaving reviews either. All right, anyway. There's just not an equality of value amongst us. I don't know how else to say it, but life is life and life has value. But somebody who's saving lives, like a doctor, their life has more value to the community in the sense that if that doctor were to be murdered, unalived, versus a homeless person that were to happen to, one is contributing to society, one is draining society. And while life in and of itself, in my opinion, all has the same value, it doesn't have the same value to society. That's the point I'm trying to make. One person's life isn't worth more than somebody else's in general, but when it comes to how it's benefiting other people, if somebody is, doing something to help other people, whereas somebody is doing something to take away from other people, then the difference in the loss of them is more significant to the society. Just as every reviewer, they're not all equal. We're all equal in that we have equal rights and equal ability to express those rights. That also means that people that don't know what they're talking about have just as much right to write a review as somebody who's well educated on the subject. That's the problem. How do you differentiate them? Usually, if you just read the damn reviews, honestly, you'll see a lot of the negative reviews are broken sentences, things aren't spelled right, thoughts aren't clear. These people are just not at the level that is responsible for writing a helpful review. And Amazon doesn't require them to be. If you see a negative review and it's very well articulated, well spelled, the grammar's correct, okay, this person sounds like they understand how to communicate, they put their perspective out there with their understanding and explain why the review is negative. That's a whole different story. but both are allowed on the platform, and it's up to each of us to sift through them and decide for ourselves what sounds reasonable and which person's out of their mind. And then, measure that, value it, because they're not all valued the same. Phil Stott said he's been using the Asus BT10 Wi-Fi mesh router for the last 18 months since I reviewed it here, and it's still awesome. Nice. I appreciate the follow-up on that. That's an expensive mesh router system. I know Luke Greeny has got that as well, and he also loves it. So we don't have anybody other than the two of you. You guys don't know each other other than being in the chat room here, and you both agree it's fantastic. Nobody's hating it. Nobody's saying, oh, don't buy it. And these are from people we know, not from strangers on Amazon. So that means a lot more to me than, random reviews. So I appreciate when you guys want to share your experiences with us, because we know who you are and we know you're not morons, so that when you explain it, and it means more, it has more value for those reasons. Andy said reviews are just another data point. Yeah, and unfortunately we've got inaccurate data and accurate data blended together and averaged out. There's no garbage filtering on it, unfortunately. So what can you do? The garbage dilutes the accurate data. And you just got to remember that when you're seeing these averages, you start to have to pick it apart, look at the individual data points, and you can identify just how much of the data points are trash and how much they are potentially diluting the overall assessment, if at all. I'd like to see Amazon do that, but I'm sure that would offend somebody. It's funny to me because who would be offended by it? Morons. Of course they would. All right, I think that'll wrap it up today. So yeah, I think I got pretty lucky with this eBay purchase. I was questioning whether or not I paid too much for it. But then when I really looked at it and saw it had Oculink and Gen 4, then I thought, oh, actually, I got a pretty good deal on it. I'm pretty happy with that. And then, having the experience with Origimagic, like, I don't know, am I buying something there's a reason why I've never heard of it? Is that why? Is it so bad that, I think it's just bad marketing. If the marketing was better, we'd probably be more familiar with the name. That's why marketing plays such an important role when you're running a business, because if nobody knows about your business, how are you going to get any customers, regardless of what you charge or how good or how fast you are? If they don't know you exist, look, you're a well-respected chef in the industry of cooking, but outside of the industry, nobody knows who you are. And you decide, I want to have my dream of opening my own restaurant. And you have the most amazing menu items in a beautiful place with a beautiful atmosphere at wonderful prices, beautiful silverware, beautiful flat dishware. You couldn't ask for anything to be better. And your restaurant is empty because nobody knows it's there. And you have a certain amount of time before, if you don't make any money in that restaurant, you run out of whatever funding you had to get the restaurant started, equipped, get everything, all the menus designed, get all the recipes figured out, find your food suppliers. You go through all this effort, but without marketing, it's going to fail. Businesses don't always fail because the business is bad. They fail because the people running the business have no idea how a business is run. The chef, he knows how to make food, or she knows how to make food. They know what a good price is. They know what restaurant should look like, what the atmosphere should be. They oftentimes don't know about location and how important that can play when you talk about real estate. They often don't know marketing at all. Like, how do we get marketing going? And sometimes an influencer will come out and make a TikTok video or something about your restaurant, and then you're busier than hell for 6 weeks. And then everybody's, even if they did know about you, 6 weeks later, For the people who didn't see your viral in that your viral video and the little time it went viral, they likely will never see it. So if they just didn't, they weren't online much those couple weeks, or for whatever reason, it just wasn't appearing in their algorithm, it likely never will. And then after that, it reaches its peak and it falls. So then you, as the business owner, you have to continue the marketing. You have to find other ways to bring yourself to the community's attention. You got to go on the news. You've got to publish, maybe on social media. You need to create a following on social media. You need to, but you're like, I got a restaurant to run. I got food to cook. When do I have time for all that? That's my point. That's my point. Some businesses are just going to have to hire people to help you. And all it's going to do is add to your debt, meaning it's even more important that you bring people in. I don't like selling my business. I don't like going door to door saying, hey, do you need a computer tech? I hate that. But I could hire somebody, there's a really good salesman, and say, you go door to door and find me some clients, and when you do, I'll pay you a commission. And maybe somebody will take me up on that. Or maybe somebody will say, well, I'm not doing that just on commission. You're going to have to pay me a very minimal amount of time anyway for my time. And then I want a commission, but I don't want it one time. Every single time that customer pays you, if you have that customer for the next 10 years, I expect a commission of that for the next 10 years. And you work those deals out. Or do it yourself. Which way is going to make you more money? I don't know. But there's more than one way to do it. But if you don't do it at all, you're probably going to go out of business. Referrals can only take you so far. And again, depending on time as well. Referrals might be strong for a couple of years, and then everything kind of dies off. And when it dies off naturally, it's not because you did anything wrong. It's just you're not doing any marketing. The people have stopped referring for whatever reason. It's not coming up in conversation, and everything slows down. When you work for somebody else, this isn't a problem you've got to worry about. But what you do have to worry about is like what happened recently at Oracle, where like a couple thousand people, a few thousand people got laid off in an email. And it didn't matter how long you worked for the company. None of it mattered. It didn't matter if your wife is pregnant and you're expecting a baby, or you just bought a new house or a new boat or a new car. Maybe you were planning to start your vacation. They don't care. You got an email along with a few thousand other people that said, you've been let go. We apologize. We've had to make some cuts. You're like, this can't be real. You go to sign in to your account, on your computer, and it says this account is no longer valid. You can't sign in. And then the reality hits you. You don't have a job anymore. And you didn't even know that was coming. They ask you for 2 weeks notice, but they will pull the rug out from under you. And if you're okay with that, just know every day at an employer isn't guaranteed. It doesn't matter how long you've been there. If you're self-employed, it's up to you. But if you're working for somebody else, it's up to them. And there may be no justification other than, we're just trying to save some money. You didn't do anything wrong. We like you. We just try to add more value for our shareholders. So unfortunately, we have to say goodbye. You can just go ahead and collect your things and go now. And you just went to work like it was any other day. In my mind, that is a nightmare. I've been through that so many times that it was like, I have to be self-employed. I cannot deal with this uncertainty. You can never go to work and feel safe in your job today unless you were the one in charge running the operation. Other than that, it's the roll of the dice. Let's see if I got a job tomorrow. Maybe I'll have a job the next day. Maybe I will the next day. And you'll do that indefinitely. And maybe someday you'll retire and you had all that anxiety for nothing. But likely, no. The older you get and the longer you're with the company, the more likely they're going to pull the rug out from under you because you're costing them too much money. And that's the workplace in America anyway. David said the Firebat laptop does not show an operating system. Oh, that's interesting. I imagine a budget laptop to have Windows 11 Home, but I would think it's Windows regardless. Dennis says, yeah, the employment stuff, that used to not be that way. A lot of things have changed. I think when I was born, the population of Earth was less than half of what it is now. I want to say it was around under 4 billion people on the entire planet. And today on the entire planet, it's about 8 billion. Not just where I live. The entire planet has doubled in population in my lifetime. More than doubled. So competitive nature is worse. The amount of people all vying against each other is worse. Everything's more crowded. Everything's just everywhere you go. Anywhere on the planet, as far as I can tell, it's changed. There's twice as many. Where there was one person, there are now two. And that's just nature. And I think when there was fewer people and there was more space, people weren't so crowded in, and people weren't so, you know, everybody's got to have their own, and now there's got to be twice as much. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. I personally prefer the way I remember it, but I was also a kid, so that, what did I know? Shane Perkins said, I have a BE9300 Wi-Fi router. I've always had issues with 2.4 gig Wi-Fi dropping all the time. So normally that occurs because you're on the wrong Wi-Fi channel. When you log into the router on your 2.4, you're offered channels, broadcast channels, 1 through 11. Whatever channel you're on is likely the default that the router came with. Same with all your neighbors. And when none of you are changing your default, you're all interfering with each other. Or you could have something in the building that's also using that channel. So if I were you, I would go log into the router and I would change the channel of that 2.4 Wi-Fi to either channel 1 or channel 11 and see if that makes any difference. And if channel 1 and channel 11 aren't making any difference, which seems to me pretty unlikely, but let's just say, worst case scenario, then pick a number in the middle, 5 or 6. There's not much difference between 5 and 6, so it's either way. But there is a big difference between 1 and 11. So whatever channel it's on, I would take it to the far extreme opposite end of where it is. And in most cases, that fixes your Wi-Fi dropouts. I hope that helps you. With that, that'll wrap it up for today. Thank you to Mara, of course, our channel administrator, for all the work she does behind the scenes. And someone's telling me there's a firmware issue on the BE9300. Is there? I can only tell you about the most common, right? If something specific to a particular maker model, that would be unusual. But the most common reason people have that complaint, it's a very common complaint. It's a very common solution. So I don't know who makes the BE9300. Let's take a quick look before we wrap it up. Now you got me curious on it. I want to learn a little bit more. Typically, a firmware issue doesn't go unresolved without a recall or an update. I think I'm going to guess, before I do the results on this, I think you're probably listening to people that don't know what they're talking about, who falsely concluded it's a firmware problem. But if you have a link to the manufacturer officially stating that they're aware of it, I'd like to see that, because I don't think that exists. 2.4 gig Wi-Fi dropouts. Let's see if it's anything other than the BE9300 firmware, particularly in GL-iNet, Flint 3, and TP-Link models, can cause 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi dropouts. by creating interference and affecting Smart Connect. Oh, well, okay, you can turn Smart Connect off, first and foremost. If it's a Smart Connect issue, that's well documented. Or the AI says requiring manual channel optimization, which is what I just said that led us here. So what I said was accurate and correct. Even in this case, you're not correcting me. You misunderstood me, or you're not hearing what you don't want to hear. Everything I said is accurate, and there is no problem on the router. I mean, as far as that goes, that is not something they would recall the router for, and that's not necessarily a firmware issue. That's an opinion. That's not a fact. So either way, what I said stands. I've just verified it, and if you don't want to hear it, that's fine. Then don't bother trying, okay? But if you follow my advice, there's a good chance it fixes the problem. So turn off Smart Connect, because that's kind of stupid anyway, in my opinion. I don't use Smart Connect. I don't like it, regardless. And then manually change your channel. You'll probably be fine. Or be stubborn and be upset. I don't care, but you know, God forbid you try and help somebody without them smacking you down for trying to help. It wouldn't be the internet without that. I don't know the answer, but you're wrong. Thanks. So believe whatever you want. It's all good. I think that's going to wrap it up on that point. Yeah. There are people that claim they need help, and when you offer them the help, they tell you you don't know what you're talking about. Okay. No customers ever paid me that ever did that. That's only something that happens with free help. People have to pay for it. To some people, they have to pay for it to give it any value. When they get it for free, it's valueless to them, and they just dismiss it and toss it in the trash without even so much as trying for themselves. They can't be bothered. They'd rather just be right. And, you know, I tried. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And thank you to all the members for supporting us here. We couldn't do these videos without your help. We couldn't have bought this without our members. And I'm glad we had this opportunity, since one was not offered to us by the manufacturer. So you know, everything I'm telling you about this is my own personal opinion, coming from a professional technician's perspective. I would have no qualms about selling this to a customer based on what I'm seeing. The only reason I wouldn't sell it is I haven't had it long enough to determine, you know, is that something I'm willing to support for the course of the next couple of years? What sort of reputation does it have with regards to reliability, power supply issues, or anything like that? I don't know. But we're off to a great start. That's, you know, a machine absolutely has to match this where it's at now in the beginning, and hopefully it can maintain that over time, and then we can establish sort of a norm of what to expect from a brand regarding quality, noise, upgradability, size, dependability. So that dependability just has to get proven out through time. And by the time that we've established that, they won't even make this anymore. But if it's the same company, we should expect the same level of quality from all their products. And I said this back in 2013 when we reviewed the Intel NUC. And I said we're going to revisit it every year to see how it's holding up over time, because many PCs were new. And the argument was, okay, so let's say 5 years go by and the thing's working fine, and it was. We can't buy it anymore. They haven't made it. No, but they've made other models. So as long as we're going back to the same manufacturer, we have the manufacturer's reputation in real time, in real life, of what that manufacturer makes. And there's always going to be maybe something slips through the cracks, or there's a mistake or something like that, a bad batch. But overall, we can ascertain, is this a reliable model? On the other hand, if we get a model and it fails in the first year and we get it replaced under warranty and then that one fails again, you know, that's about as far as my testing's going to go. If we're that unlucky or the product is that bad, I'm not going to put my name behind it and recommend it to somebody. And we haven't reached that. We've only had one day with this, but ideally this should last for years. And then by then, I say, okay, I can recommend it. You say you can't buy it anymore. Well, no, but we'll look and see what they're making currently and expect the same kind of reliability in manufacturing, quality in manufacturing, regardless, because it's the same manufacturer. So that's the theory I use before I start selling things off to customers. And it starts by having one unit. You can imagine my skepticism with Minis Forum. What does that name even mean? It's a mini PC that started based on forum discussions. It's not a Minis Forum. It's a is this a Minis PC? It's a mini PC. It's a Minis Forum. And yet I will see reviewers who claim to know what they're talking about. They can't even pronounce. This is a mini PC made by Minis Forum. Oh, no, it isn't. It's a Minis PC made by Minis Forum. What are these guys doing on the YouTube channels? I don't know. Doesn't make sense. It's a clue in to me that if they don't even know how to pronounce the name right, they don't know why it's named that. I don't know how accurate their reviews are going to be. I might be a little judgmental on that, but it's pretty basic. Anyway, I don't get it. It just I had my car at a dealership, and the notes from the mechanic were all misspelled, like English wasn't their first language. And I wondered, if you can't even spell the word steering correctly, how accurate do you really know the mechanics of the car? I started doubting the mechanic's ability if you can't even spell the parts you're working on. But you know, that doesn't necessarily mean that mechanic doesn't know their job, but it certainly indicates if you can't even spell the names of the parts you're replacing, it indicates to me you probably aren't very well educated on replacing those parts to begin with. But, you know, that's judgment on my part. I see them as red flags. If somebody knows how to spell the parts they're working on, then that's not a red flag. Like that should be the default. You should know. That should be implied in your position. It's not difficult. If you don't know how to spell the word brake, if you're spelling it B-R-E-A-K and steering is S-T-E-A-R, you shouldn't be a mechanic. You have no business being a mechanic. You're not working on my car, or it won't happen more than once. We're done. So if I see reviews on YouTube and they can't pronounce the names of the parts, oh boy. Not a good sign. But like I said, when we first got the Minis Forum, I was like, who's this? You know, is it some cheap brand? Is it junk? Is it fly-by-night? And, you know, they become my favorite manufacturer of minis, period. Make no secret about it. And I've never made any money from them. They've never paid me. They've never sponsored us. They send us units for review, and sometimes they don't, and we go and we buy the units. I'm happy, very happy that you know, they never got involved in accidental spyware installations or any other nonsense some of the competitors have gotten caught up in and had to correct from. I haven't really seen Minis Forum have to correct for anything so far. And that long history of how many years gives me an idea of what to expect. So do I have Minis Forum mini PCs that I have put my name behind and put out at clients and business? Yes. Yes, I do. And for Doug Betts, he puts his faith in B-Link. I think they're pretty good. They just don't have enough variety for me, but that doesn't make them bad. But again, we can't just throw stuff out there to clients and put our reputation on it. And then, well, most of us can't afford the reputational damage and the cost of constantly having to fix something. And there's got to be some trust in the product that you're selling to the customer, or you're going to lose the customer's trust in you. Shane Perkins said, I'm on channel 2. Everyone else is on 1, 6, and 11. So channel 1 and channel 2, they're too close together to make any difference. You're not helping yourself to be on channel 2. When you say everyone else is on channel 1, 6, and 11, where are you? That seems like what you're telling me is you are fighting for the airspace of about 300 feet. Yeah, let's say 1,000 feet. And you're telling me that within 1,000 feet of you, you've got other 2.4 gigahertz radio signals in your building? Do you have roommates with their own routers? Or help me understand this. Now, if somebody's on channel 1, but their signal strength is like 2 little bars, it's not going to interfere with you. You don't have to worry about that. But if you've got 3 bars and above on channels 1, 6, and 11, and none of those are yours, you either have a very unique situation or terrible router placement. I'd be very curious to understand the environment you're in that you could describe that, because I'm having a hard time imagining where that's possible. Maybe an apartment building? I don't know. Very unusual. Phil Stott said steer, S-T-A-R, is not even a word. Tell that to the mechanic. It literally said that my power steering pump was leaking, I think is what it said. S-T-E-A-R-I-N-G. Yeah. I can't make this up, man. And it's a dealership, for crying out loud, not just a corner mechanic or a friend. A dealership hired this person, and I was paying them to work on my car because I thought the dealership, did a better job at hiring people that knew what they were doing. Edward said, great show. Thanks. Have a great evening. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us, Edward. Good to see you, my friend. He said, yeah, he's in a 6-unit apartment building. So if you're in an apartment complex and maybe you've got multiple floors and, maybe you're somewhere in the middle, let's say, I want you to picture a multi-floor building with individual apartment units across each floor. And then you've got your signals coming from below, signals coming from above, signals coming from the left, signals coming from the right. And if everybody's got 2.4 and your signal's dropping all the time, it's probably time for you to just turn 2.4 off. Just use 5. That problem goes away permanently. If you want to continue to work on 2.4, you need to relocate your router somewhere else, either higher or lower, more to one side or the other, the front or the back, in order to get away from the signals. You want the signal strength from channels 1 and channel 11. One can be, let's say you're in an apartment building and you're in the far side against the wall. Regardless of what floor you're on, you put that router all the way against that wall closest to the outside of the building. But what you say, what if I'm in the middle? You should have an outside to the building. Whatever wall is your outside wall, in your scenario, I would put the router there. Secondly, if your router is up high, bring it down low. Put it on the floor. If your router's on the floor, get it up the opposite. Get it up as high as you can get it. The idea is that you want to get away from those other signals. Something else you can do is you can take a piece of aluminum foil. So let's say we have a router and we're up against the outside wall and we place foil behind it. That blocks or works as a shield. It may not 100%, but it will do some blocking of the signals coming in from back here. But in theory, there shouldn't be any signal coming in from back there if that's the street, right? Depending on where you're located, you need to find a wall away from a neighbor, period. And if by putting it against the wall, it's making channel 11, who's ever using channel 11, maybe you're getting 5 bars on channel 11, but who's ever using channel 1 should be far less. Should be, they should be somewhere further away. You're going to be putting yourself closer to one person than another. That's what I'm trying to say. So whichever one is lower, that's the channel you want to be on. and your signal will override theirs. And then they'll be the ones who has the dropouts, maybe, not you. Phil Stodd mentions sometimes just rotating a router can make a difference, and that's possible too. You can just turn the router like a clock and see if that makes an improvement. But the idea that you would have somebody on channels 1 and 6 and 11, and they're all 3 bars or greater, because that's about what it would take to override you on the same channel, then that's bad router placement. And so there's ways you can work around that, but it is a downside to apartment living, unfortunately. You know, places like Chicago, New York, Boston, where they're really crowded and there's big apartment buildings, a lot of times there's like a building Wi-Fi. It comes with your rent and you all share it. It avoids this problem. And other times you just need to switch over to a different frequency, turn off the 2.4 altogether if it's that crowded, and just go to 5 and 6 gigahertz. And you know, it gets more expensive, but you clearly don't need the range in the apartment. 5 should be plenty. And then any old networking equipment that's 2.4, just replace it. It's only an apartment. I mean, how much stuff could you have? So hopefully that'll get you to a solution. But I wouldn't look to firmware, and I wouldn't blame the router for that. That's just the physics of radio frequency and how it works. And if it ends up making an improvement for you, let us know what you ended up doing. Or you know what, for that matter, if you make some changes and it's not helping, let us know that too. I'm not completely out of ideas yet, but in most cases, I will tell you, that is how we solve it. It's pretty rare that we have to replace a router for that. Phil Stodd mentioned he's got 2 mesh systems running in his house and neither interfere with the other. Yeah, well, apparently he's got 3 plus his own for a total of 4. And will you have control over those 2? He has no control over those 3. And there's really only 3 channels to pick from. And if he's got a 4th router, there's not a 4th channel on 2.4 that he can escape. He has to, you know, get away from one of those 3 signals enough, you know, where it's preferably at 2 bars or less. And then he should be fine. Yeah, 2 is no problem. 3 shouldn't be a problem. The minute you exceed 3, expect problems. All right, guys. So again, thank you for hanging out. We're going to wrap it up for today. I need to go through, I suppose, and just remove the default apps, you know, some like the media player and stuff on here. And I guess we're done with it. I don't know what else to do with it. Tomorrow is our members only Monday. So for all our friends in green, I hope I'll see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock. I had a system come in for repair. I kind of talked a little bit about the customer of mine that's having a computer crash randomly. And I think I got it figured out. So I'll share that story with you tomorrow. Until then, thank you again, and bye for now. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Back to work tomorrow. Bye for now.